Good.
Good evening. I will now call to order the October 13th Finance Committee meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, which is being recorded. Because it is a hybrid meeting, I will ask the committee members to introduce themselves as being present.
Kevin Perry, present.
Robert Rendon, present.
David Carpenter, present.
Susan Lorenz, present.
Thank you. As this meeting is being recorded, the listing of the matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at this meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This is a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. So I will now ask that turn this over to the chairperson for the Board of Selectmen.
Good evening and welcome. I would like at this time to call the order.
Kevin Chico's present. Peter Karen present.
Chairman Leonard Hull, present. We will at this point enter into a review and discussion of a collective bargaining agreement between the town of Dayton and the Dayton dispatchers.
First, let's all rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I motion at this time that the Finance Committee go into recess.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Please state your name and your vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Sue Lorenz, aye.
Thank you. We'll now go ahead and turn this over to Chairperson Hull to run the Board of Selectmen meeting.
First item on our agenda is to review and discuss the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Dayton and the Dayton dispatchers union.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very happy to report that thanks to great cooperation with the Dayton Dispatchers Union, Chief Corin and Selectmen Karen, working over the past month and a half, we were able to come with to a pretty expeditious tentative agreement with the Dispatchers Union. We were in preparation for this evening's meeting. We're looking initially to go forward with a specific dollar figure in the proposed special town meeting warrant, but after consultation with Labor Council and Town Council, what we can, because we don't have a written MOU entered into by the town and the union at this point, we will be recommending specifically in Article 4 that would read to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of money in this to fund fiscal year 21, fiscal year 22, and fiscal year 23 personnel expenses for employees covered under the Dayton Dispatchers collective bargaining agreement. So what this means essentially, we would have the language, the sum of money in the warrant, and then as we get closer and prepare the motions for the special town meeting, we're thereby going to have an MOU that is actually entered into by the town and the union. So then we can plug in the specific dollar amount in the motion that will be presented at the special town meeting itself. So very good news there. But like it does inform also how we can go forward and planning the special town meeting. And I do want to thank again Selectmen Karen, Chief Cronin on our side. We have a very not only this process, but other union process as well. We have a very streamlined and efficient process, and it works. And you know, like it works in fairness to the town and our employees as well. So, so thank you, everybody.
Is there any questions?
You want us to table it then?
Yeah, I would recommend it to people.
I would entertain a motion to table the vote moving the agreement between the town of Dayton dispatchers union until it is ratified.
And so we'll.
Motion made second. All those in favor, Chico?
Aye.
Mr. Canada? Chairman Hull is an aye. Next on our agenda is to review, discuss, and political union memorandum of understanding. Mr. Bowman?
Yes, yes, and thank you again, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, we met in executive session last evening to discuss the proposed MOU that will come between the town and the Dayton Clerical Library and Council on Aging Union. And the purpose of this MOU actually comes on the heels of the recently recommended wage and classification study recommendations. And and as a follow-up to that, the wage and classification study did include significant input and engagement with employees and department heads. But in the event that we do have any employees that do want to appeal the recommendations of the wage and classification study, this MOU would create an appeals process. And specifically, the appeals process would state that any employee seeking to appeal the recommendation of the wage and classification study will notify the town in writing to the Board of Selectmen's office by the close of business on Thursday, October 27, 2022. Thereafter, the town administrator will convene a panel consisting of himself, the human resources coordinator, labor council, and a member of the Board of Selectmen to review the information provided. The panel may seek follow-up information from Ms. Bernard, who made the recommendations from the study, and may interview the employee and the employee supervisor or the department head regarding the request. Within 30 days of the submission of all information, the town administrator with the recommendation of said panel shall provide a recommended decision to the board, of Selectmen regarding the recommended reclassification. Like again, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, we really do have a very good relationship with our employees, and this the wage and classification study was a pretty significant process. And as we move forward, we just want to make sure we get everyone's input in that process to actually inform how we move forward. So that's what this proposed MOU would do. And the recommendations again from the panel would come back to the full Board of Selectmen for their recommendation as well. And I think I covered everything on that. So
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
I just want to. The Board of Selectmen will be approving this evening. However, it must also be approved by the union for it to take effect. That being said, I will entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the town of Dayton and the Dayton Clerical Library and Council on Aging Union.
I so move. Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Chico?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. At this point, I will turn the meeting over. Chairman Hull.
I make a motion, the finance committee come back from recess. Come back.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to reopen the finance committee meeting. I'll start on this side.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Thank you. All right, so the next agenda item is to review the special town meeting article and make recommendations from the finance committee perspective. From the Board of Selectmen perspective, it's actually approving each of the articles. So we're going to ask that Board of Selectmen kind of drive this process. We'll step through the articles by number. However, I would like to go ahead and take Article 20 out of order and address that first, since we have our BP person on the phone to answer any questions right now, and then we can kind of get that one out of the way.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Magul, Dr. Magoulis. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Superintendent, you're actually muted. Yeah, you're actually muted. One sec. I'll ask you to unmute. Does that work, Dr. McGillis? I don't have any idea why it won't unmute. Oh. Good. Are you able to unmute it all?
Take that means no.
Yeah, just for troubleshooting, Serena, would you be able to try unmuting and test it to make sure it's not an issue on our end?
I'm able to unmute. I just happen to be on my cell phone.
Okay. Dr. McGillis, you want to try to log out and log back in? Maybe that will just magically work.
It's to join the meeting with computer audio at his end. I just went through this afternoon.
You want to try logging out, superintendent, and then logging back in, and we'll see if that works. Okay. I think I'm reading your lips.
It's not looking good.
Oh, I think you might be frozen.
Can you just disconnect them yourself?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, no. If we remove Dr. McGillis.
You can't come back.
Oh,
So how about let's see if he comes back.
all right. So while we were waiting for the superintendent, I'd actually like to ask our town accountant, Serena, to go through the free cash certification component of the packet that was sent out. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No problem. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yep, that PowerPoint presentation we went over in the Selectmen's meeting yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys have it up on the screen there.
We have hard copies.
Okay, perfect. So your history of free cash in Dayton over the past few years are averaging around that 1.7 million. Oh, the superintendent, I think, is back on. Do you want to switch back to him?
Let's see, can you hear us, Doctor?
I can hear you. Sorry about that.
All right.
I'm not sure what happened.
All
I
right.
apologize and thank you for having me. And thank you for being patient as well. I know sometimes technology is great, but when it works and when it doesn't work, it's not so much fun.
Right. All right, so just so in our special town warrant, we do have an article here to allow Freetown into the agreement. Do you want to give us a little bit of history?
Sure. The way it works, unlike when you asked to join the district, unfortunately, the town of Freetown was also once a member, but never signed the agreement. Fortunately, Dayton had signed the agreement, and therefore it took the hands out of the commissioner's response to that. So in doing so, we have to follow the regional agreement. It basically is the letter goes to the school committee. The school committee approves it. The regional agreement then goes to DESI to update any of the new legal references and also to just make things easier to read and understand type of deal. So their legal department worked with our legal department. Basically, the original agreement hasn't changed except for the town of Freetown. I mean, it has changed, there's edits, but it's really for the purposes of updating legal references as well as making things understand a little easier. And then once that goes through and the school committee approves the town of Freetown, and then it goes to all member towns to Freetown, including the town of Freetown has to vote on themselves as well. And if it's unanimous, then it goes to the commissioner's office. The commissioner then looks at the original agreement as well as making sure everything's right. That's why they had us go to the legal department first. And then the town of Freetown would be accepted if unanimous. If one of the towns fails to approve, then they were not part of the, they wouldn't be part of the district.
Thank you. Financial impact to the town of Dayton. Other than the typical operational expenses that are essentially charged back on a per student basis, we have the most recent passing of the new campus there at BP. What is the financial impact there?
I mean, it's hard to tell with the financial impact. I don't see a pot. I don't. What you would have is another town basically filling some slots and picking up some of the tab if there is there's possibly a percentage savings versus an increase. But again, it's all per pupil anyway. Depending how many. Now I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to decrease because it all depends on the number of students that are coming into BP. It's number based, and we talked about that as far as if your numbers decrease, your that decreases as well. So if it increases, it goes up as well. This is only an opportunity. If you recall, we have an increase of 100 students to this new building. These 100 students could potentially be the town of Freetown. I don't know. But at the same time, it depends on other towns as well, because when you're voting, you're also voting. It's possible that, there's more competition for your students to come in, right? With another town come in. But also another way to look at it, there's a town coming in that's going to, their students are coming in and someone else is going to help pay for the building as well. So that's two ways to look at it.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions for the superintendent?
No, do we need to, even though it's not a money article, do we need to vote?
I believe your vote is just to make sure that you are going to include it on the warrant. The finance committee will not be making a vote to recommend or not recommend because it is not a financial related matter. Yeah.
Are there any questions regarding Article 20? No, I would like to read Article 20 before we take a vote, so it's. To see if the town will vote consistent with section 7 and section 8 of the existing Bristol Plymouth Regional Vocational Technical School District agreement among the towns of Berkeley, Bridgewater, Dayton, Middleborough, Rainham, and Rehoboth to approve the amendment and restatement of the Bristol Plymouth Regional Vocational Technical School District agreement to include the town of Freetown as a member town, as initiated and approved by a vote of the Regional School Committee and submitted to the Board of Selectmen of each member town, or take any action relative thereto. That being said, I will entertain a motion to place Article 20 on the warrant.
So moved. Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Chico?
Aye.
Mr. Karen, Chairman Follow is an aye. Mr.
All right.
Bennett?
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. I do believe that covers your course of business for this meeting.
Thank you for helping me with my technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Until. All right, Serena, I'm gonna turn this back over to you to kind of just quickly run us through this deck before we start looking at the motions.
Sure. Okay, so as I was saying, the the free cash from the previous year came in at 1.7. And that was due to a one-time result in COVID spending freezes, a strengthening reliance on highly extended local revenue receipts. And the DOR did outline that in the future, the free cash will just be a little more limited than it has been in the past. But the 1.7 seems to be the average that Dayton has been receiving so far. So the next page is this current year's free cash came in at 2.9 million. And right off the bat, there was 1.2 million that came from the Dayton Rehoboth's excess and deficiency turned back. So that's an additional 1.2 that we had entirely go to free cash. So once you subtract that out, we do come to the 1.7 million, which is typically the amount for Dayton. Even though fiscal year 21 and 22 were completely different budgeted years, they still closed out with a similar free cash total in the end. And then just to note that they downgraded the FY22 revenue projections to be more closely married with what was actually being received for revenues. And the COVID spend and freezes did help to turn back some extra money. So the next slide is the revenue impact. So as I just mentioned, they did the revenue estimated projections to be more in line with what was actually being received in the previous years. They downgraded the new growth slightly and building permits and such. So more consecutive revenue projections and the one-time realizations were able to increase the amount that was certified this year. So I just highlighted a couple of areas where the revenue did come over above and beyond what was estimated. So the first one is a little over 300,000 in the excise taxes, which is still a very good amount considering how the automotive market was, in short demand and they were having computer chip issues and such. And then 186,000 for one-time penalties and interest payments. 75,000 was left over from the previous year's free cash. 25,000 was the host community agreement for the cannabis, the One Connection facility, which was not anticipated. So that just was a complete additional revenue. 44,000 is miscellaneous and 56 came from additional cherry sheet revenues. When the cherry sheet is not quite complete when we are doing our budgets. So that's always, a variable that can go up or down a little bit. So in this case, they came in with an additional 56 with the revenue. The next slide is the expenditures. So at the end of 22, there was approximately 700,000 that was approved but unexpended. So 228,000 of that went back to the sewer retained earnings, which being an enterprise fund is separate from the general fund. Of that 700, 100,000 of it was encumbered into fiscal year 23 for bills that items like we ordered, but we haven't actually been invoiced for them yet. There were many special town meeting and annual town meeting articles that were closed out. Projects were completed, but all of the money wasn't spent. And then there was an additional one for the Dayton Elementary and Middle School entrance that had money turned back. An additional 155,000 was turned back from the health insurance benefits. 61,000 came from veterans benefits, and around 50,000 from the police department due to their personnel budgeting and not backfilling some positions that were vacant, which saved on the salary side. So that's just my quick little rundown. It was my first time actually completing full certifying free cash as a whole. And it went pretty smooth. There was, I had a consultant help, but just to kind of make sure we were reporting properly. And it was pretty easy. Oh, are there any questions?
Anybody have any
I
questions?
do not.
No.
Yes.
We have a question for Mr. Morrow.
Yes.
Tonight, FinCom, as well as the members of the public who weren't listening last night, our plans in regards to the 1.2 million from
Yeah, the school portion, the school back portion, like everyone, I believe everyone has seen in the recommendations. Really would be really to be reserved. A lot of it, is actually going back to stabilization, in the amount of $350,000, capital stabilization currently proposed, at $450,000. To fund OPEB at $90,000, and then one of the things with that turn back, we do have a very we work very hard each year to to prevent the PD the new police station debt service ever hitting the tax rate. This year that debt service is budgeted in the amount of $367,000. What we're also proposing this year to reduce the tax rate, that we increase the amount to reduce the tax rate by an additional $230,000, which will bring propose the commitment to reduce the tax rate in FY23 up to nearly $600,000. So like that is a part of the warrant recommendations that have been presented to the FinCom and to the Selectmen this evening.
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Serena. I'm glad to hear it went so smoothly for you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So if you'd like me to start, I'll go on since it's a long.
Let's included in our packet was kind of the outline from the capital outlay committee, as well as the impact of all the special articles to free cash. So I do have a couple of questions around this. The first one being on just below the first pink item there, the highway department light duty dump truck. I see the amount requested is 105,000, but I don't see anything in the free cash recommended amount. Is that not being recommended?
Right. So this is something that we internally have been going back and forth on. We've been wrestling because we we've been funding highway capital very, very diligently in the last, in the last few years. But we also want to, with all our needs, in the priorities we have, the recommendation not, by me really not to fund at this time doesn't really reflect, like on the priority, because we do have a fleet, like a pretty wide fleet, a broad fleet of equipment. But we really want to make sure we're spreading out, really our ability to fund the capital priorities on departments. And one of the things, just as an example, when we, at the intercom meeting, when we made a priority to fund the new highway department, like at the intercom meeting in June, that did crowd out other priorities, at the time, which we're now having the ability to come back to. But I mean, it's, like it's wrestling with like a never ending battle. So that's what, is being proposed, but it's just, what is being recommended to the FinCom and the board at this, at this moment, obviously. Both boards and the voters have the ability to decide as well.
Okay. My next question is around the placeholder item, the funding the CBA between the town of Dayton and the dispatchers. So the FinCom's stance on this over the years has been that any personnel costs are funded through raise and appropriate. However, we recognize that this is, I'll say, a back pay or catching up, because we've only had we've been operating off of the old agreement. So there's going to be some restitution for that back pay. To me, that is the entire purpose of the stabilization fund itself. So in looking at this, what I would suggest is that whatever that amount ends up being determined in the next couple of weeks, when we get to town meeting, we leave the 350,000 on this regular stabilization fund. But once we get that CBA number, we reduce the amount that we actually request to be transferred to the stabilization fund, because that's where that money should be coming from. Those are the kinds of things that we need to be getting in front of. We knew the CBA had expired 2 years ago. We knew we were going to have to pay some form of catch-up payment to them. And that's the whole reason why for the last, I don't even know how long, we've been making regular contributions to that stabilization fund, exactly for that reason. So to me, it should just come right back out of that stabilization fund. So the easiest way to do it is leave the warrant at 350. When we go to make the motion, we just, instead of reading 350, we reduce that amount by whatever the CBA is. And that's that. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody, everybody?
Thank you.
Okay.
How much is the stabilization account as of today?
What's the approximately 1.6, 1.7 million?
And I think the number that the town administrator quoted to me was roughly $25,000, and that we'd have to pay to make the difference between
We can still punch the numbers. That's
Yeah.
why, I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's why it works to have the language of sum of money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so we don't know exactly what that sum is, but even if it's $30,000 or $40,000, it's still the intent of the stabilization fund to cover exactly those types of things. And I recognize the fact that we don't want to do a raise and appropriate for this, especially considering that we are reducing the tax rate with our bond payment for the police station and the snow and ice offset here that we're planning on. So to me, an extra 25, not transferring $25,000 to where these funds should be sourced from anyways is the way to do this. Yes.
I
Selectman Hull.
understand your logic. But I also understand there was probably a number that was worked into the process to create the placeholder. What I'd like to see, based on what you have just proposed, if we're going to do that and take it out of the stabilization fund, that we increase the stabilization amount request. The goal is to increase it more than what it is.
So let me ask you this, though. You're telling me that you want to increase the stabilization fund for something that has been 3 years in the making. That's going to end up costing the town roughly $25,000. Yet we are going to, we've potentially taken off a piece of heavy equipment for our highway department here, which would a lot of times be funded out of our capital stabilization account. So that would, my intent there is that when something happens in the town from an operational perspective, it is typically, and I'm going to use the word typically here, a lot less than if something happens to a piece of equipment. So for example, if our ladder truck got into a collision and was deemed totaled, what would it cost us to replace that? $1 million and plus at this point in time. Where does that take our capital stabilization fund down to? Next to nothing, about 400,000, I believe, 500,000. Even after this contribution, it's not, so to me, if we followed your logic of contributing to a stabilization fund, let's not put it in regular stabilization. Let's put it in capital stabilization. Our capital stabilization fund, in my eyes, seeing all these requests that are coming through, not just for this year, but for the upcoming years, is that we should be somewhere in the 2/3 to 1/3 ratio, capital to regular, or even possibly 3/4 to 1/4. So it's anywhere from 66% to 75% of our savings, if you will, should be going to capital over operational stabilization.
What you're saying is you would favor an increase, but not in stabilization, but in capital stabilization.
I'm not saying I would favor one over the other. I'm just saying that this number, I just don't, well, I think we would have to see how things play out with regards to that. And that's usually, we usually hold the stabilization ones off until the end. Same with OPEB, because we figure out what's from a special town meeting article, what I'll call them keep the lights on, keep the town running, keep the town safe. We make sure that we get all those, and then we know where we stand with our remaining free cash before we actually consider the OPEB contribution, the stabilization and capital stabilization.
As I advocated last year, now advocating this year, I think this time should get an habit. Earmarking X amount of dollars a year. Save money, not just in emergency, but future.
But where's that money coming from? Where does it originate from? Right now, it has, at least in my history, and I've been here almost coming on 10 years. We've always funded through free cash. Okay, and yeah, both stabilizations. And we've just heard our town accountant tell us that our free cash levels need to be coming down. We should not have that much excess. We've also, I've heard that we want to move to a zero-based cost accounting, which means that our free cash is going to be greatly reduced, which means that if we do that, and how far are we under the levy limit this year? It's not a lot, right?
150,000.
150,000. That's not a lot of money left for us to essentially save.
So you're just reinforcing my point. Now is the time when we have the money to put it in stabilization, going down the road. We may not be able to build up on the stabilization.
So then let's, at the end of the day, though, for free cash, we've always, after special town meeting, we've gone historically over the last few years, somewhere between 450,000 to 500,000 that we've held back. And you can see from our carryover this year, which was only $75,000. We hit that holdback pretty spot on. Okay. So let's recognize that this as well. In order for us to actually tap into our stabilization funds, we have to hold special town meetings. If we retain it in free cash, then it becomes, we don't have to have a special town meeting for it. It gets handled here at the Board of Selectmen's level with FinCom approving it or not approving it, right?
What is DOR's recommendation for the percentage in the stabilization?
So yeah, they don't have a cutting number like it. So like it really varies, but so it varies by community. One, a best practice, if you will, like is really to try to get to 10%. And right now, right now, assuming that we put between 3 and 350 back in stabilization, we will be back to like a 7.2%, which we've been increasing tremendously on, especially in the last 3 years. So we've been making, through everyone's work, we've been making very good headway towards that. And I think we're in a very good position to be close to achieving that pretty soon. One of the things in talking when we had DOR actually working with us last winter and the spring, one of the things that they recommended, which all of us will really need, and I think we have an obligation to work on in the coming months. We actually, in my view and my hope, until we were faced with another transition in our town accountant, if I had my hopes, we would have really, started that process, a process to create financial policies, actually over the summer. So like in town financial policies that would be agreed upon with, in terms of a methodology between the FinCom and the Selectmen, they would take a lot of frankly, like the guesswork and like the different really philosophies here. So out of really the question, because if we had a financial policy like other communities do, so like a financial policy would say, okay, we have a goal. So hypothetically we have a goal of having 10% of our operational budget in stabilization. So based on that goal, then we create a plan strategy to get there. So then as part of that, we would all decide and approve. So like in a financial policy of like a $1.7 million of free cash. So yeah, like whatever that number is, and then 10 or 15% automatically goes into stabilization. So like it would take a lot This, out of the question, it would make it, it would make this process into much more like of a methodical process. That's where we need to go, but obviously we're not there yet. So I mean, I think the discussion that we're having, is one that I think we should be having because, we need to have some synergy, I think, in terms of, really how we financially plan. So, but also how we address the big needs and challenges that are in front of us.
I also think that the thing you're not considering here is the additional $230,000 that is being added to the, to that first article, Article 3, I believe, or second article, which is really Article 3. Which is 230,000 above and beyond the police station payment. Okay, that to me is also a stabilization effort as well. Okay, and that is an operating expense, not a capital expense. And so now you could just as easily look at this as that's not a $350,000 contribution to stabilization. It is now a $580,000 contribution to stabilization, of which we're already pulling 230 out of it to reduce tax rate to offset the snow and ice. So that is a huge number, especially when this finance committee had considered a good portion of that $1.2 million E&D return from the schools to be set aside specifically to address future school needs. And instead, we're gonna only end up with roughly a third of that number. That's an awful lot to ask for, and all I'm asking here is the reduction of the stabilization by $25,000.
I have a question on this. Article 4, the money here. We're going to be going to take that money to cut. This is the money I can out of free cash, because otherwise, if we took it out of stabilization, it's going to take 2/3. Am I correct?
We are, but what we would then do is when we get to the article in the future around stabilization, and it'll still read 350 in the printed article. When we get up to read the motion, we will reduce that amount by the number associated with article number.
Yeah, it's 36,000. We may go 35. I mean, we're not going to do changes.
You're right, yeah.
I sympathize with what Chairman's concerns are, increasing the stabilization. I always felt that when it comes to free cash discussion, we think of stabilization, capital stabilization, OPEC first, and even the police station first, and then we talk about other things that we can do. So, I understand where it's coming from, but we're not talking about a great deal of money taken out of stabilization.
Correct. And we're already adding an extra $230,000 here to reduce tax rate. So that would be our point. Any further discussion on that topic? Okay.
No, I'm comfortable with that. I think that's
Okay.
a good way to address it.
Thank you. And let's see, want to make sure. All right, I think we can go ahead and start going through the articles. Yeah, so if you want me to kind of facilitate the process, then you guys just do your thing. So it'll be first. I think the first thing is you guys need to, Board of Selectmen needs to vote on whether or not the article is going to be on the warrant or not. And then we would then have open up the discussion between both boards around the amount. And then we'll do a vote on recommendation from the Board of Selectmen and a vote on recommendation by the FinCom. Okay, and then when we get to an article that we know we're going to skip until the end, for example, stabilization and capital stabilization and OPEB, we'll just skip right over those. Cool.
Regarding Article 1, to hear reports of the town officials and act thereon. If there are no questions, I'll entertain the motion. So,
I'll make a motion that we put Article 1 on the warrant. It's a warrant article, for the special town meeting. Then first, 2022. Second.
Motion made second, all those in favor, Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Mr. Karen. Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the amount of $4,257.19 to pay prior year bills or take any other action relative to prior year bills. Now, police department, $28.71. McKesson Police Department, $1,352.77. TCI Press, Town Report, $1,875.71. Was there any questions? I'll entertain a motion to place Article 2 on the warrant.
I so move. Second.
Motion made second, Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Mr. Karen. Mr. Brennan. And
So from the finance committee, I will entertain a motion to accept article number 2 in the amounts as shown.
Second.
Well, I need to get a motion first, but I also need the motion to be in terms of either we will raise and appropriate, or we will transfer from free cash, although most of these should be transferring from free cash. But yeah, so I need somebody to actually make the motion.
I make a motion, we vote to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $4,257.19 to pay prior year bills or take any other action. They're relative thereto.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Do we have to specify that as free cash, not available funds? Because
Available funds and free cash are the same. It's not raise and appropriate. So.
Yep.
So it is free cash.
Aye.
Kevin Perry, Robert Rendon, it's an aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
Motion carries.
I'll entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $4,257.19 to pay prior year bills or take any action relative thereto.
We're making a recommendation of that, right?
Correct.
Just did.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 2. Second.
What we have to specify.
Make a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount $4,257.19 to pay prior year bills or take any action relative thereto.
I don't think that's way to
Motion made second.
No.
Mr. Chico. Ms. Karen. Chairman Hull is an aye.
Yeah, I don't think we need to read everything. It's
No.
just the first vote is the article as printed going to be,
That's it.
will it be on the warrant, yes or no? And then the next vote is
The recommendation.
a recommendation
Yeah.
out of either free cash or raise and appropriate in the amount listed on the, and that's it. I mean, otherwise we're gonna be here all night.
Exactly. Now, in all due respect, haven't the selectmen,
But we have to by law.
no. Have the selectmen already reviewed this?
Yes.
We haven't voted on it. right?
We haven't voted.
Oh, you hadn't voted on it yet. Yeah,
Two birds, one stone.
yeah. So- Yep.
Recommendation that came back to us, so look,
Yeah.
consider that recommendation.
All right, so we can streamline it that way then.
Yeah.
This will take very long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Article 3, we've had an opportunity to read. I will entertain a motion to place it on the warrant.
I so move. Second.
Motion made second, Mr. Chico. Aye. Mr. Karen. Chairman Hull is an aye.
So finance committee, any discussion on article number 3? This is the police station bond payment plus an additional $230,000 to reduce the tax rate and by funding the FY23 snow and ice deficit.
All coming from free. I have no questions on.
All coming from free cash, yes.
Okay, from free cash, yeah.
Yes.
The
Questions?
additional 230,000 is from free cash or from.
All the whole 597 and except 295 is from free cash. All right.
Yep.
Is there a motion to recommend?
A motion that we recommend Article 3, funded from free cash as written in the article.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend. Mr.
Kevin
Perry,
Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenzo, aye.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to accept the transfer from available funds, $597,925 for the bond on the police station.
I'll make a motion to, Board of Selectmen recommend Article 3. Second.
Motion made in second, Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Mr. Tanner.
Aye.
Chairman Hull. Article 4, we have the opportunity to entertain a motion to bring on the warrant.
I'll make a motion to Board of Selectmen place Article 4 on the warrant. Second.
Motion made in second.
With a friendly amendment to just, actually like change, the word in the second line, to read funds a sum of money, to fund fiscal year 2021, 2022, and 2023. So we would take out the sum of $sign and replace it with the words a sum of money.
As amended, I'll make that motion.
Made in second, all those in favor? Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Mr. Tanner.
Aye.
Chairman Hull.
All right, Finance Committee, this is the CBA catch-up payments
Okay.
totaling roughly $25,000. Numbers haven't been crunched. But this is something that we will, by contract, we will need to fund.
Okay, but transfer rather than raise and appropriate.
This will be from, yes, from free cash, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question from Mr. Aguirre.
Understanding the finance committee from years past, why are we doing a transfer from free cash for the remainder of FY 23 if this CBA is going to cover wages for the rest of the year? That's the RNA.
While I certainly agree with that, this is the easiest way to actually fund it without us having to get down to the I can never say the freaking specificity around around the calculations for this. You're not, we're talking about probably about a few $1,000s that at this point, we're reducing our tax rate by a large amount here. So for us to have to sit down and go through the gyrations of this, it doesn't make sense to me. I did talk this over with Finance Committee Chairman Roach, who is unavailable tonight. And we did have the same discussion because I raised that same, we usually do personnel expenses out of raise and appropriate. But it is, but let's put it this way. Would you want to be the one doing the calculations? Yes.
It's a much cleaner way
Yes.
to do it, but it's still an operating
Yes.
expense.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's more about ease of funding it than anything else. So,
Otherwise, you'd have to break up the article.
you could, yeah, or you'd have to,
break up
you'd
the
have to
article.
reread the article and say for FY 21 and 22, the amount of
Cash.
X dollars and raise and appropriate.
I mean, it's still.
Yes.
Yeah, it can be done through the motion.
Yeah.
If we so choose.
Well, I think there's gonna have to be a point where in the future, if this happens again, you have to do it that way. You can't.
Yeah, especially if it's gonna be a more significant amount.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't even really know what the amount is. We're making a decision based on what we think it's gonna be.
Yeah, there are a lot of unique things that make this work for this really
This time,
particular
yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
And in this case, since we don't know the amount and the article is changing to sum of money. If we can get a breakdown and what we typically do from a FinCom standpoint is we will have a FinCom meeting prior to the special town meeting. So we can always change our recommendation. We can change the way the motion is read first off from, well, it's gonna have to be changed because it's gonna have to include a dollar amount. But we could easily change it from transfer all of it from free cash to transfer X dollars from free cash for FY 21-22 and raise and appropriate X dollars from. So if that number is available, we're certainly not limited to it.
Yeah.
But what we are doing here is really voting on whether or not we're going to recommend us funding this. And I would say right now, and we can always change it up right up until the meeting, as long as we have another meeting that is posted in time, right?
I think it's the only way you can handle it right now.
Right.
I don't think we could handle it any different right now.
So. Is there a motion on the floor to recommend article number 4 as being funded entirely from free cash?
I move to make the funding for Article 4 to be transferred from free cash or available funds. Yes.
And is there a second? Second, all right, and we'll start down here.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds. Article 4,
I so second.
motion made in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 5. Now that to this over, I will entertain a motion to place Article 5 on the floor.
I'll make a motion that we put Article 5 on the warrant. This is actually free cash, right?
Well,
It's a-
we're just voting right now to place it on the warrant.
Right.
It's just on discussion.
That's my motion.
I think it's fair for Mr. Karen to ask for the chief to get some input from the chief on this.
So I'm looking for support from townspeople to take a look at renovating Station 1 or building out a new station in a different location. And just what that looks like is in relation to cost. We do have the area or the land to expand at Station 1, but I think there's a lot of unknowns in relation to conservation property, in relation to the septic system, and where that would land, and if we really do have the space that we think we have. Jim and I have spoke about this on a few occasions, and I just think that this is the best route to go to look at all possible options.
What is the, how far out do you see a fire building coming in? I mean, spend $150,000 now. That could be put either towards the fire station or
So
the addition. How much, why do we have to spend $150,000 now to get that?
just because I don't know what the cost, I can't project what the cost of building new versus adding on is gonna
Well, it's
be.
gonna be cheaper, obviously, to build, to add on than to build new, but
I don't know that because once you start opening that can of worms, right, Jim, it expands into, once we start touching bathrooms and things like that, now we have to touch the septic system and all those things that are related, and is the space to do that there? I'm really not sure. I can't answer those questions. So I think we need a professional to come in and look at the location and look at even response times from Station 1 to the west end of town. And this study is going to do all of that.
And as we have seen, raising of prices, inflationary rate, it's 150 G now. Down the road, it'd be a lot more than 150,000.
for study.
Mhm. Yeah, we've definitely seen that.
So you know, right now, Station One's busting at the seams.
Yeah.
Operationally, it's just. It was built in the sixties to be a call fire station, not a 24/7 fire station. I have my secretary who shares her office, becomes a bunk room at night. It's her office during the day. Functionally, it's unprofessional. It's just, this town needs to do something for the fire department. I think it's a responsibility. I think it's due to the call personnel, to the full-time personnel, and I think it's long overdue.
Are they also gonna look at the other fire stations?
No,
No. They're not thinking of this building one for the whole town.
no,
Fire station.
yes. Answer the question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're not looking at Fire Station 2 right now. What condition is Fire Station 2 in?
Station 2 is also pretty full, but we manage it to work. With the expansion we did in 2008, we were able to make more room. But it eventually will have, there's some issues that Jim and I talked about exterior wise to take care of, but it works for what we have.
So is there a reason why you stated we are not looking to include Fire Station number 2 in this feasibility study if we're looking to build a new one? Is that not an option to have one fire station in town?
It could be. I don't know if I want to give up the station.
I guess if we're looking to build a new one because of cost or space, Fire Station 1.
Mhm.
And if you're saying the same situation is in Fire Station 2, so are we looking in a couple of years with another feasibility study to look at Fire Station number 2?
So the thing you have to remember with Station 2 is Station 2 is only a call fire station. It's not a station that's manned 24/7. So the operationally, it's not the same as Station 1. There's no, I'm not there, my secretary's not there. It's essentially a call comes in, people respond to it, take apparatus and leave.
Are there people there during the day then? It is manned during the day or no?
No, it's a completely call station.
Yeah.
There's nobody there unless we have our call personnel do 6-hour shifts, we call them, and occasionally somebody will be there and man a station for 6 hours. Just to get them involved and maintain the station.
Really just equipment storage then?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's essentially cold storage because it's kept at 50 degrees, so the trucks don't freeze.
Okay.
Regarding South Station. We're doing a feasibility study. Possibly looking at a new facility. That feasibility study, doing any remodeling of, look into the remodeling of one to make it habitable.
Station 1, so that's what this study is going to do. It's going to compare making Station 1 what we need it to be versus building out a new one.
Well, I understand versus, that's the key word, versus. If you go with a new station, are you closing south or would you keep it open?
That would have to be, I don't know it.
And how much would it cost to make upgrades to the south station to make it?
I don't think there would be any cost if we're going to make it, if we're going to bring it back to a call station originally. We wouldn't have to do anything to it, right, Jim? We wouldn't.
There's some maintenance issue, but no, there wouldn't be any big construction.
So it'd be primarily 150,000 is to do a comparison between.
Correct. So there'll be a response time study, there'll be a building study, there'll be a renovation study, all part of this one study. It's all included in it.
Entertaining motion in place. Five on the warrant. And we didn't get a second. Second motion. Motion has been made in second. All those in favor?
Kevin Chico's an aye. Mr. Darren's an aye.
Chairman Howard, Mr. Raymond.
FinCom. I'll entertain, any discussion?
Yeah, I had one additional question. After the feasibility study is done, or maybe sometimes even going into it before. Once the feasibility is done, are they gonna investigate any monies we may have available through the state if we do go new? Because a lot of times, if you build new, there might be more money available to you than if you try to add on or do something that's a remodel. Is that gonna be part of the study that they're gonna also give us that feedback, or will we do that on our own?
I think we would do that on our own.
Okay.
That wasn't discussed when we,
Okay,
with the one company we reached out to.
okay,
We reached out to the company that was used for the police station.
Yep.
Because we were very familiar with that.
fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. All right, I will entertain a motion on article number 5.
We're gonna do this as the appropriate and the transfer from available. Okay.
Second.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 5. As, are we gonna do this as raising appropriate?
No.
No, we're gonna do this free cash, yeah. So see if we, motion Article 5, we transfer from available funds in the amount stated on warrant.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Put this to a vote.
Yep. I, Kevin Perry.
Robert Rendon is an aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, I.
Thank you.
I entertain a motion to the town. Will vote to transfer from available funds, the amount of 150,000, feasibility study of Article 5.
I so moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Mr. Cameron. Chairman Howard is an aye. Article 6. I will entertain a motion to place Article 6 on the warrant.
I so moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Mr. Cameron. Chairman Howard is an aye. Mr. Raymond.
All right, any discussion items from the finance committee on Article 6?
Was this one of the vehicles we put off in June?
Yes. This is our annual funding of a police cruiser.
Was it last year? Well, last year they asked, at town meeting, more funding was asked for the vehicle that was approved the year before, and the prices had gone up.
Yeah.
During the COVID. Was that vehicle purchased?
Yes, that was the private inspection of vehicle for the building department, conservation agent, and the health department. That vehicle was procured in operation for about 6 months now, and it in fact is very much serving its purpose.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
another police vehicle was.
Chief, the cruiser from last year was ordered. Have we received it yet?
Received it. Just got word yesterday that it could possibly be in first week of November. You know, we're a little fish in a big pond. State police get priority with vehicles, and, you know, we order one a year, and it's basically order now to get this time next year.
Yep.
So it's a struggle.
Yeah, supply chain issues and just demand, right?
So it's, yes, compounds too, you know, somebody said chips, that's definitely part of it, but our issue is the lighting packages for the cars. Can't get them.
So has it been 2 years since you've received a new vehicle? Actually received one?
Patrol vehicle, it has been almost 2 years, yeah. Yep, we had to replace an admin car that was hired. But we have not had a patrol vehicle in about a year and a half, about 2 years almost. Look it up, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at your schedule here. We got 2 in 2020. One was, I think, the insurance. We had one total. We had to buy 2 that year. Yeah,
Yeah, so
so it's been 2, yeah. Thank you.
thank you. And as you see, the cost is up almost 20% on these things.
Right.
I almost hit the floor when I saw the quote come in.
Oh, one other question.
Yeah.
Do we get these cars from the same place all the time?
There's a state bid, so we do shop it. Problem is that it's location. we try to stay somewhere local in case we have to bring it back for warranty purposes or for, yeah, so,
All right.
yeah, try.
Or do you try to keep it in at least this part of the state, the eastern half of the state? Or
We do, yeah. There is an auto group that's really pushing for municipal work right now. Problem is they're up in Woburn. It's not feasible.
that is a little far to take your car for maintenance work.
Well, you don't have to take it in for maintenance, and you don't have to take it in for warranty. If you have any problem with the lighting and other things that.
That's where it's
solved,
correct.
that's the problems you have. Warranty,
You go to-
you can go anywhere.
You can go to any dealership
Yeah.
for the actual vehicle.
Right.
But like Mr. Perry said, it's all of the,
Add-ons.
All of the add-ons
Yep.
specific to a
it's
police car.
incredible how much is tied in to the computer and how much
Yeah.
you can control with hooking a laptop up to it to program everything. It's nuts.
Yep.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to recommend Article 6 for the police cruiser.
Second.
Oh, I need a motion. I can't make motions. I can only
Yeah.
request
Stop
them.
doing it then.
I can only request them.
I would move to approve the amount listed of 75,500 for the police chief in Article 6, as stated in the draft special town meeting warrant, to be transferred from free cash or available funds.
We amend that to police cruiser and not police chief.
Oh,
I'm sure he'd
okay, yep,
appreciate it, but.
the police cruiser.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Motion is
Second.
made and seconded.
Susan
Go ahead and
Moran,
vote.
aye.
David Carpenter, I.
Robert Rendon, I.
Kevin Perry, I.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $75,500 for Article.
So
Motion made second. All those in favor, Mr. Chico? Aye. Mr. Karen? Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 7, we've had the opportunity to review this. I will entertain a motion to place Article 7 on the ballot.
So move.
That'll be good from the after the meeting before. I mean, I would.
Good evening, everyone. So that, you might recall as part of our capital outlay process, I had previously presented a much larger package of around 90,000 to pave several different parking lots. But through some creativity and partnership with our highway department, we were able to make 2 of those relatively safe and usable, that being School Lane and Lane Field, for the time being. Down at the basketball courts, what you'll notice is if you look at the parking lot, the old, what would be considered the old police station parking area is in okay shape. I wouldn't call it great shape. When you get closer over to where the court side of things, it's pretty well deteriorated. It was actually established out of some recycled material. I don't think it was ever actually completely paved. It was kind of just some run over from the police station parking, and it's been brought to our attention because now that that facility is being more widely used, mostly by, folks playing pickleball. We went from seeing, a couple of cars down there a few times a week to, 20 cars down there 3 or 4 times a week. There are some safety issues with, kind of the existing grade. This trip hazards. I mean, it's a very, very rough terrain. The other part of that too is we spent the time this summer to create accessible walkways to the court surfaces themselves through the MOD grant. And those accessible pathways are pretty much the road to nowhere because we don't have an accessible parking lot. I don't think that Parks and Rec typically asks a whole lot of the town as far as, spending money beyond our budget. And we've done a great job of using grants or relying on our highway department to get things done. But I think this one's important just because we've seen such a massive expansion in the use of that facility with a wide age range of folks. A lot of the pickleball players are, typically seniors. So it would be nice to provide a surface for them where they could get in and out of the facility safely.
How often is pickleball played?
At least 3 days a week. if not more, depending on,
What time of the season? This ends in the fall.
they have, so they typically will play until there's snowfall on the ground and they can't.
You don't plow it anyway.
That would be a question for Mr. Ferry. I'm not sure if, I mean, Mr. Ferry also has equipment storage on the same grounds. Not to say that he would need to plow that section of the parking lot to access his equipment. But it would certainly make it easier on him. One other thing that's concerning too is just the overall layout because of the prior use of the facility being with the old police station is the entry and exit into that is somewhat difficult. So I think part of the paving process too is also myself, Mr. Perry had talked about this previously is, and this is won't be part of any spending. I think it's something that we can do in-house with materials we have is adjusting the guardrail to make safe entry and exit out of that parking area because that is also a concern. There's kind of two places where you can enter and exit now that are somewhat hazardous. So.
So do you think spending $30,000 of not Parks and Recreation? West Parks and Recreation money that would be well spent?
I think it would be excellently spent. Parks and Recreation doesn't even get 30,000 a year, so we couldn't fund this out of our own budget if we wanted to.
No, I'm not saying you
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
Just asking if you had it.
Oh, if I had it, I would definitely spend it. Like I had mentioned earlier, we had previously met with the Capital Outlay Committee, and I think at the original time when we presented that, I think the ask was around $68,000. And then we, by the time we got to annual town meeting, the cost because of the aggregate material cost rose 28%. So I think there's another issue, much like with the police cruiser, the longer we wait, the more expensive some of these materials are going to get. And this, for me, and I think for Parks and Rec and the citizens of Dayton, it's not really a want. It's a need for public safety at this point with the conditions.
Parking lot like it together.
So right now we have a good established gravel base with the hopes that at some point we can afford to address it and have asphalt paving at all these.
Acceptable at the other two. Why isn't it?
Well, it's not acceptable by ADA standards. I think, given the financial position of the town right now, we wouldn't want to ask beyond our means. But this one is absolutely a safety hazard where the other two, although they don't meet ADA requirements and aren't what we would like to see, we're gonna make do with what we have for the time being.
Mr. Renton. The Park and Recreation Department for many years was underfunded. The Park and Recreation Department, the first time in a long time, has put together a strategic plan to upgrade their playground. Their courts. Originally, they had wanted 90,000. Mr. Smith was graciously worked with town administrator Mullen, knowing that $90,000 request significant to the town has many capital needs. So he's reduced it to 30,000. And some of that expense is going to be used for this facility to be upgraded to meet ADA requirements. I had the opportunity of attending one of the Park and Recreation meetings with a discussion of this playground and the upgrade of the work that needs to be done there. They had more people at their meeting than we do at the Board of Selectmen. They had 25 people. They have an adult pickleball league, a youth pickleball league, but I don't see here, which will be impacted by the parking lot, is that there is men's parking there that also plays roadway parking there. For many people who use the Park and Rec facilities, as we saw last Sunday with the dedication of the North Dayton playground. A lot of people sign on their own time are using our facility, recreation facility. In support of this.
In fact, I just want to add one thing too. So what myself and Administrator Muller have been doing whenever we do have a project that comes up, most of which has been done through either grants or through CPC funding, is an item like this is gonna go through an IFB. We're gonna look for, you know, a contractor that's gonna give us the best value. And typically, everything that we've been doing with parks, even with CPC money or grant money, is we traditionally, in the past 2 years, have been coming in under budget on anything. So it's not our attitude that if we have it, let's spend it all. We try to be fiscally responsible regardless of the funding source. So
Yeah, you.
Thank you, Kevin.
So this 30,000 you're asking for, have you gotten a bid for 30,000?
So-
You're thinking that's about the price.
So that's pulled out of when we did the capital outlay procedure. I had the 3 facilities isolated into 3 separate quotes. And that, I think that original or the second quote, because I had it amended to go to annual town meeting, was, I want to say, around 26,500. So just like I did with annual town meeting, we bumped it up a percentage to cover the cost. But that's where we got there, yeah.
Okay.
At this point.
But with this time, it's gonna be a springtime project at this point because the asphalt plants are closing down, things like that. I mean, when we could be fortunate and the prices could drop, unlikely, but it could.
Better off to wait till next year.
Yeah. So, correct.
Okay.
Is it my understanding the other 2 parking lots, because they're not paved, but rather, gravelled over, like you said, is that why the terrain on that's probably not as dangerous, I guess, for lack of a better word, as the previously paved and deteriorated?
Correct. Yeah, the conditions are completely different, where this was probably paved at one point many years ago and then kind of patched in with recycled material, where there was never an established asphalt parking lot at the other 2 facilities. So it's just typically been maintained with gravel. Like I said, it's something that we would love to address, but we're just trying to be conscious of, what funds are available to do that, not be too aggressive and asking for too much.
Honestly, it's probably gonna be far better to try to mitigate whatever litigation we can avoid.
All right.
Is there any further questions? Mr. Pacheco made a motion. Second. Motion has been made and second.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Article 7 on the warrant. Pacheco. Aye. Mr. Karen. Aye. Chairman Hull.
Finance Committee, any further discussion on this? No?
So, well, I do have a question.
Okay.
Would this be transferred or raised?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The capital outlay, I see the score on here, you obviously stand behind this.
Oh, yeah, capital outlay, so from a capital outlay perspective.
Yep.
We've met with Parks and Rec. They've laid out their plan. They, even when we talked about not being able to do everything all at once.
Yeah.
Their plan was actually presented in, here's what we'd like to do this year, the next year, 2 years from now. So they've got a plan. They're thinking about not just today, they're thinking about what else do we need to do to grow our facilities. And very organized, very, meticulous in the quotes that we got and everything. Accounting for, as Mr. Smith alluded to, the ADA requirements, what it's going to take for us to get our facilities into compliance. So we were quite happy with that. So again, yeah, this was just one that again, we did not entertain at annual, strictly because we did not know what our free cash position was going to look like.
If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion on Article 7. To appropriate or transfer from available funds in the sum that's set forth on the Article 7 on this warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $30,000 in regards to Article 7.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Karen. Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 8. to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds. You've all had the opportunity to read Article 8. I entertain a motion to place Article 8.
Second.
Made in second, all those in favor, Mr. Chico? Aye. Mr. Karen? Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Renner?
All right, in looking at the spreadsheet here, our town administrator has recommended not to include this article. Is that correct? Yes.
So, so this funding request recently went to capital outlay, for Hot Street drainage upgrades. And what was actually discussed, when this went to, capital outlay, is that the project within our existing operating budget, had the ability to be phased in over 2 years. Like the first year with the engineering, and then with the construction, from the operating budget in the second year. So like because a funding source, already does exist with, because that funding source does already exist within the operational budget, that's why. But that's why I recommend it now.
Is this something you guys want to bring up at the next annual in June?
I know within the operational budget, specifically in the stormwater budget, this, this issue relates. If I understand it, to like the stormwater need, and we do have the ability to, with engineering, phase it in over.
Okay.
Over like a process of time, so we don't actually have to go to a special town meeting article.
Okay.
Mr. Ferry, do you concur with that?
Mostly, yes.
How about you tell us about the not mostly part you
So you're looking at $30,000 project, so. That's why it's where it is. It is true that I can fund this in my existing budget, but it's going to be very close to the fiscal year. So I was entertaining for it to be considered either funded or everyone's aware that we might need to transfer the finish the fiscal year. That's how fast it's going to be. That's where I am with this.
Okay.
That's why I go back to 30,000.
Okay.
We'll just take it from Jimmy's budget and transfer it to you. Okay. Relative to that tactic, though, from a end of year transfer from underutilized budgets, are you comfortable that you would have $30,000?
The other unknown is we have a repair on a system that was damaged. We don't know what that costs. But we recommend that at least half of this, 15,000.
Oh, I just want to run some numbers here. This is where I'm for Sue and David, this is where it starts to get interesting for us. Because we're playing with some numbers here.
Do you want to finish the rest of this and circle back, or you want to just get it out of the way now?
Honestly, for
that kind of.
for $15,000 recommendation, so Mr. Ferry suggested half of that, $15,000.
Yep.
Recognizing that could end up being turned back. If he actually stays on target, but again, that also gives him a little bit of leeway with regards to this repair that he now has on his plate, that which means he's probably got to use his budgeted repair amount to do the fix, which means he's going to be short there to do this project. So
either way.
so yeah, he's going to need money either way. So I'm kind of the opinion right now at this point, not kind of, I'm not gonna flip flop. I'm of the opinion that we fund half of this based upon what Mr. Ferry just shed light on.
I'll agree.
No, I agree with that.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion
Thank
if
you.
there's no other questions.
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion on Article 8 that we reduce the amount to $15,000. Make it a transfer from available funds as written in the warrant article.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for article number 8 to recommend $15,000.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, I.
David Carpenter, I.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make a motion to, that was something to reconsider. Article 8.
So let's,
What I wanna do is, I'm just thinking 15,000 instead of.
in the warrant itself.
Article itself.
Okay, so you want to change the warrant article itself. Okay, okay.
I'll make a motion for us like reconsider Article 8.
Good enough days
Uh,
to change that one.
Motion made in second. All those
Yeah,
in
it's
favor?
gonna be, I'll change them by Monday.
Chairman Hull.
Yeah. I'll make a motion. Sorry. Then Article 8, read to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $15,000 to be expended by the highway superintendent to provide design and engineering services and related drainage upgrades on certain portions of the property or take any other action relative thereto.
This is to place it on the warrant.
Yes, to modify the language on the warrant.
On the warrant. Never voted to-
Problem if we bring that back up.
I mean,
Second.
motion made second. All those in favor? Yeah.
You know,
Chairman Hull is an aye. I will entertain a motion.
I still don't know what's
I will go to transfer from available funds the amount of $15,000.
Second.
That's an economical.
Is it?
Yeah. Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 9.
Selectman Hull,
Yes.
might I recommend that we hold off on Article 9? We have, we've heard from Town Administrator Mullen on this and with regards to the funding of Highway Department equipment, and that we've done this in earnest over the last couple of years. And I think that we would be best suited to address this just prior to the stabilization fund and OPEB discussions, so that we can see where our free cash stands after all of our recommendations.
You're talking about tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
So would it be more appropriate to table it?
Well, there's no, it's just we're just discussing, right? And we're just going through the articles. So there's not even a need for a motion here. Similar to when we suggested when we got to the OPEB and stabilization funds, that we just skip over those until the end. So that's, let's just skip this one and come back to it just prior to the stabilization and OPEB discussions.
Had the opportunity to review Article 10. I will entertain a motion to place Article 10 on the warrant.
I have a question. The stairway is going to be independent of what's there now, and just going to tap into the railing, tap into the sidewalk.
Yeah, tap into the walkway, like you add your.
Mr. Aguirre, could you?
Hello, everyone. Jim Aguirre. Hello, Dayton. Hello, boards. So the walkway that we installed was to eliminate the steep ramp that was non-compliant. The walkway is now fully compliant and does not require handrails pursuant to the codes. However, we found out that the taxpayers have spoken and they would like a rail put on the walkway regardless of its slope. So, or its grade. In doing so and discussing this with Administrator Mullen and Chairman Hull, there is a future elevator that may go on Town Hall building And there was a stairway that was always intended to go from the elevator entrance, which would be at the parking lot level, up to the rampway or the walkway now in this case, so that pedestrians or able-bodied people would not have to walk the entire length of the walkway to get to the front door. And they could in turn enter the elevator area and either choose the stairs to go up to the front door or enter the elevator. So I thought, you know, in lineal thought processes that if we're going to expend funds to put the railing up, that we should also put the stairway in and create that area where the elevator may go at a future date. But either way, I think the stairway is warranted, and I think it will be utilized by people who can use stairs. That's why it was included in this article.
Are there any further questions?
Well, from the back parking lot, can't they just come in the building and use the inside stairway?
Sure, they can. But, you know, we were trying to make the front, which is the main area, the main level, which is where most of the services are, more accessible from the parking lot. Do you remember the old ramp walkway?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very steep. There were no stairs. So, you know, everything we're doing is sort of to help alleviate some of the pre-existing problems, but also think about the future where we may actually make both levels of the building accessible or more accessible via an elevator. Right now, if you want services on the upper level, the easiest way for you to go is the upper parking lot, lower level would be the lower parking lot. By sort of doing this new configuration, you could enter in the main parking lot and then either use the stairs to go upstairs if you want to walk outside, or use the elevator lobby, which will either bring you up or down.
Stairs are gonna be located pretty much right adjacent to the elevator lobby, then right there.
Right, so the elevator lobby, if it goes where I envision it, will be just on the backside of Administrator Mullins' office,
Okay.
which is where if you use the interior stairway,
Mhm.
you exit that door, you're in that hallway. That's more or less where it will be.
Okay.
That may change in the future, but right now logistically, that's the best place for it. So the stairs would be as you go by the box, where the old box location was.
Yeah.
It's now all grass.
Yeah.
That will actually be the flat area. And then the stairs will go up to meet the walkway about halfway along the walkway's path.
Okay. I say if they're able-bodied, can't they just use the ramp? Can't they just use the walkway?
Yeah, I run all around this campus and I think it's great exercise. So I would agree with you, but we have had some complaints through the Board of Selectmen's office.
Okay.
He's really
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both for the railing and the length. Because in order to make it less steep, the only way to do that is to make it longer.
Longer, yeah.
So it's in excess of 100 feet long right now. So this would essentially decrease your walk in half, but add 5 or 6 stairs.
Okay. I don't have any other questions to vote on it yet.
No, not yet.
I have a motion. It's made by Mr. Pacheco to place Article 10. I will entertain a motion to place Article 10 on the.
I'll make that motion. Thanks, Article 10.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is also an aye. Mr. Brendan.
Any questions, discussion on Article 10? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Article 10. Transfer from available fund as written in the warrant on Article 10.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded to recommend transfer from free cash on Article 10. Put it to vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, I.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $75,000 as requested in Article 10.
Jim, quick question. How much is just the railing? Stairs.
The railing is about $50,000. Yes,
So 25,000 for set of stairs.
yes. Poured concrete, poured in place concrete stairs, yes.
I think that was.
Okay.
Motion to be made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Cannon. Aye. Mr. Keeling. Aye. Chairman Hull is. Regarding Article 11. I want to make a motion with we have a recommendation that not be included on one. The man,
Yes.
would you explain?
Yes.
why you were making that
Yes, so, the Concom, while the warrant was open, they did propose a warrant article in the amount of $5,000. That would fund up to 5 hours a week. Clerical assistance for the Concom. And I actually had like a long discussion with the chairman of Concom, and the conservation agent, who were both invited here tonight as well. And what we talked about was the current composition and the delineation of responsibilities within the Concom. Currently, the secretary of the Concom is the only paid member of the Concom. Who receives an annual stipend of $4,800 a year. Of new filings, advertisements, to perform. To perform clerical related duties. So what I actually suggested, so like is, is that if the Concom wants a dedicated employee, to really do those functions, that they look at how they currently allocate, look at how they generally allocated their existing general operating budget funding to the secretary of the Concom. So like really they do, in my opinion, and recommendation, they do have the ability to look at how that $4,800 stipend is really is really delineated to the secretary, and they do have an ability to really discuss as a commission how they might want to reappropriate that existing funding. And so so that was my recommendation to the chairman at the time. And and I did actually inform him that he would have the ability really to advocate for this as it moves along in the process. And I can give you up this evening. That makes sense.
Are there any questions? I will entertain a motion. Since I do not have a motion, Article 11 will not. Well, to see if the town will vote to raise. You've all had the opportunity to review Article 12. I will entertain a motion to place Article 12 on.
I take that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Mr. Chico?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Renner.
Finance Committee discussion on this item. Any?
So this is a one-time fee of the 13,000. Are there annual costs associated with this?
Cost associated with taking a charge card and paying a percentage of that.
Well, we don't have any subscription fee or what, I don't know what else to call it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't.
But yeah, Town Administrator Mullen has some experience because we have installed point of sale at Town Hall.
Right.
So this is just at transfer station now. So Mr. Mullen can speak to the costs.
So yeah, the building department does already have an operational like point of sale system through the building department permitting process. And our new treasurer, he's actually working on expanding that within town hall, which is amazing. With the $13,000 being posted, one of the really significant issues that we've been facing and that we're trying to really get a hold of right now is our solid waste challenges. And over the spring and summer, working with the Board of Health, we actually created a standalone solid waste. We created a standalone solid waste committee to really look at these things and really the operational and the fiscal, frankly, solvency of of our entire solid waste program. A lot of it does involve the operation of the transfer station, the things we accept, the things we take. But we really, the point of the solid waste, of the point of sale system would be able to actually really keep a real-time inventory of what actually we're taking in to inform volume, revenues, and things like that. Right now, we have a very antiquated system where there's a copy of receipt actually stapled to a check. Looking at the end of every Wednesday and every Monday after the transfer station's open on Saturday, all that paperwork comes up to town hall, and there's no way to reconcile it all. So this would really streamline the process. But to answer your question specifically, so what we would try to do is that to integrate I'll integrate POS system that hopefully may be able to integrate with our existing systems as well. So there's an interface between all of them. We do the charges would go, they would be credit card charges really to the consumer, which is our residents. But I would imagine a very modest annual subscription fee, just like we have one for the building department. But those expenses are very modest, and the benefits of this and the information it will actually really produce in terms of informing volume and revenue decisions.
Right.
It's gonna far outweigh any of those.
Thank you very much.
And those costs will be incorporated into their operating expenses. So we don't have to, we won't need to be worrying about seeing recurring, requests here. And on top of that, I think any nominal fee that we're gonna see is going to be offset by the reduction in return checks.
Or just the hours going through all that.
Exactly, exactly. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right.
Finish.
Yeah, did you guys did the selectmen put this on the warrant yet? Not yet, so we'll wait for that.
No, that's a change. You've had the opportunity to review Article 12. I want to take a motion to this Article 12 on motion. Second, all those in favor, Mr. Karen? Mr. Chico? Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Rennie?
Thank you. Any discussion from the finance committee?
No.
No.
Good, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve, place Article 12 on the warrant. Town to vote, raise or appropriate or transfer from available funds the 13,000 to be expended by the town administrator. And or the Board of Health for point of sale system.
All right, so let's back up. I'm gonna disregard the motion and we're gonna restate it. And all we're looking for is motion for the finance committee to recommend a transfer from free cash to support Article 12 as stated.
I move
You could just
for
say,
the finance.
just
committee.
say,
As stated by Mr. Renton.
thank you. I make my.
Yes.
There we go.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. Kevin,
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Sue Lorenz, aye.
I will turn back over to you, Chairman Hull.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $13,000 to be expended in Article 12.
Make that motion. I'll second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen, Mr. Chico. Aye. Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 13. I had the opportunity to review this article. I entertain a motion to place it on the warrant.
Take that motion. Actually, I want to get from the highway department first.
Mr. Perry, would you come and address your needs in regards to this project?
Maybe we'll find that out now.
Hi, Tom.
Good evening, Mr. Ferry, sir.
So, was there a question? Just why 267,000? I thought part of the bridge was covered into that 2 million or whatever they had appropriated for.
But we don't have that yet.
So we have to spend this now.
This needs to be, Ms. Mullins is probably the better person here, person is. It is approached, ready for submission for 25%. And that'll make it attractive, the next step.
At last November, in your budget town meeting, the town funded $150,000 to take it to the 25% design. That superintendent, the superintendent probably just mentioned. What the additional $267,000 would fund would be to take it to the complete 100% design and then to also fund all the permitting for the proposed new Pleasant Street Bridge. That means taking it through the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers, DEP, because the Taunton River is wild and scenic. We'd have to advocate the state agency, Tom, that we just met with a few weeks ago on their permitting process as well. The hope and the expectation is, can we've already actually, hopefully been making like a really good push for the whole, almost $3 million in funding for the construction. The hope and expectation is that when communities, they fund all the design and engineering on their own, it puts projects like these in a much better position to really secure the whole state and federal funding that will fund all of the construction costs for the bridge, for the bridge replacement. So basically, if we don't make this investment, we run the risk of really not really best positioning ourselves for the almost $3 million in grant funding that will be needed if we don't have the ability to afford it all on our own.
Well, we have to spend 267,000 to prove to the state that we want the 3 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be-
Yeah, we have to make the,
It's basically in-kind service.
so yeah, we have to make the first upfront investment to show that we're serious about it, so they come in and hopefully provide almost $3 million in construction costs. Yes.
That's the towns they're gonna look at first. People that have done this.
Yeah, the state definitely wants you to have skin in the game.
Yeah, sure.
That's exactly. it, Mr. Tucker.
As was the case with the Hart Street upgrades, there are many residents in Pleasant Street, Hart Street area who have concerns about this bridge. Mr. Perry, could you tell us how bad this bridge is? I mean, it is a definite need. This bridge is on the verge of being condemned. Is that correct?
Yes, this bridge is currently the only bridge in town that has a weight limit. It's not even it's not rated even to handle an ambulance to go over it.
And it's 1812, is that correct?
I believe 1914. Yep.
Definitely a need. Are there any further questions? With that being said, I will entertain the motion to place Article 13 on. Make that motion. A second. Motion been made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen, Mr. Chico. Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Ray.
The Finance Committee comments, questions, discussion. All right, I will entertain a motion to support Article 13 to transfer from free cash amount of $267,000.
I'll make a motion for Article 13 to fund the 267 out of free cash.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Put it to vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenzo, aye.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of money not to exceed $267,000 for Article 13. Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen? Mr. Chico? Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 14. We have the opportunity to review Article 14. I will entertain a motion to place Article 14 on your.
Yep.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Chico? Aye. Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Bennett?
Any
questions?
yes, go ahead.
I have no
questions.
No.
This is okay, straight transfer, no questions.
A motion for Article 14 that we accept as written on the warrant article.
I just have point of order here, Mike.
Yeah.
Why is this on an article? Why aren't we just getting this as a transfer request?
Was it not? That's already?
The request, it hasn't been when we have to, I believe the town accountant's on with us as well. The waterways account, I believe that is a revenue account. So we have to take from the revenue account and appropriate it into the budget.
Thank you. I got it now. Yep, thank you. All right.
Yep.
Where were we?
I motion that we accept Article 14 as written in the motion.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenzo, aye.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to accept Article 14 as presented this evening. Second. Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen? Mr. Chico? Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 15. You had the opportunity to review.
This is OPEB. We're gonna skip this. This is OPEB, so we're gonna hold that one off.
You had the opportunity to review Article 16. I will entertain a motion to place Article 16 on the warrant.
Where is it?
gave them $40,000 and now we're taking it back.
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay. So I make that motion.
those are good articles.
Yeah,
Yeah. Never do anything with it.
Hmm?
Never do anything with it.
right.
Place Article 60 on the warrant. Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Chico. Aye. Chairman Hull is an aye. Mr. Mayor.
This is I don't think this is a non-finance committee vote. We don't have a recommendation either way.
Coming back, right?
It's coming back, so we don't do a motion, we don't do a recommendation on this.
Article 17.
The board of the selectmen want to make a recommendation?
Yes. Chairman,
I'll entertain a motion to place Article 16 on the warrant.
Make that motion.
Make the recommendation, favorable recommendation. I'll entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation from the Board of Selectmen for Article 16.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen. Mr. G. Chairman Hull. Article 17.
Yeah.
Review Article 17.
And let me interject here, that we're now at our stopping point, because the next two, 17 and 18 are capital stabilization and stabilization. And I believe that is it for the financial articles here. So to that end, I just want to give us, and this will now take me a couple of minutes to figure out what our bounce is in terms of free cash.
I believe has been doing.
She's been holding it.
I believe, right, Serena?
Yes. It was just a little difficult to hear at certain points, so can I just confirm a few things?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is the drainage was recommended for 15,000.
Yep.
Yes.
Correct.
And the additional clerical support for 5 was not recommended.
No,
Okay,
Correct. Yeah, we pulled that out.
so with everything else staying the same, that is using $2,117,052.19, which leaves us with a remainder of $879,216.81.
So Serena, can you do me a favor and just zero out the stabilization fund, capital stabilization fund and OPEB amounts and tell me then how much are and in looking at the handout here, this is the free cash amount recommended column. If you pull those three values out, that will give us the running total in terms of what the Board of Selectmen and the finance committees have recommended so far on this, on the warrant.
Okay, so with those 3 taken out, we have a remainder of $1,769,216.81.
what is it? What did you back out, Robert?
So I just backed out stabilization, capital stabilization, and OPEB. So that's
That should be
800.
890,000. That should be 900,000. Backed out. Almost.
No, I asked her for the total that we've,
Right, so you're gonna take 890 off of what we're working with, the 2.117, right?
yeah, so that won't be that 1.7 that she's talking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
890,000.
Right. So if we're working with 2.117,052.19, we take 890 off of it. I believe that's the total you're looking for, correct?
Let me get 2.17, are we still at 2.9?
Because we added the 15 onto the 2.1 that we already had. In other words, budget as it stands right now, adding that 15K back in, brings it up to 2,117,052. Robert's asking to zero out stabilization, capital, and OPEB, which is 890,000. So if you take 890 off of the 2.17,
oh,
you're taking
Yeah. 2117.
2117, 5219. Then you're gonna take
Back out
890.
890.
Yeah, it'll be like 1.2, whatever.
No.
Yeah, that's,
We're just-
and that's,
it's a couple
yeah,
of numbers.
so hold on. So, one,
So I think all of us, like, are starting
1, 2,
3 different places where we're starting to back out of from.
We just want to determine what's been funded without those three accounts. So you just take the 2117, take the 890 off of it. That's what we've agreed to.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what we agreed to. What's it come out to?
yeah, that's right. So. So the remaining free cash, no, so we've spent, so the number is right. What we spent to date, to so far of free cash is 1,227,052.19. Leaving a balance, which is Serena's number of 1.1769,216.81. So. So the reason why I wanted to stop us here, though, is because you'll notice that we have a couple of notes in here about future anticipated expected costs in June 2023. Now, I had to ask Mr. Mullen for clarification on this. These are expenses that are going to be incurred in FY24. Okay, so the reason why the June 2023 comment is there is because that's annual town meeting date. Okay, so I wanted to be clear on that because I was confused as to the way I read that was we were going to incur these costs in June, which would have made it part of this fiscal year. That's not the case. Okay, so I want to make that clear to everyone. What I want to say is even working with the number that's on the sheet here of with the remaining holdbacks, free cash holdback of $894,000. Okay, and then thinking about these 3 items that are here. Okay, the point I want to make here is our typical holdback has been between roughly 450,000 to 500,000 on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's usually the money that we are able to then use at annual town meeting before we get our free cash in the fall, our certified free cash in the fall. Okay. The 2 items at the bottom of that list, $110,000 for the fire engine, the $52,000 for the street sweeper. We had those same costs last year. Okay, we took those out of free cash last year. We don't need additional monies in free cash to cover those expenses. So having a holdback of 894,000, to me, at least this number right here, doesn't make sense because we can automatically reduce that by $162,000. And therefore putting more money, and I think this will make Chairman Hull pretty happy, more money into our stabilization funds, both of them. Okay, so that's that. What I really want to hear about, though, is this pavement management plan. And I'll give you my take on it in simple terms. And Mr. Ferry can correct me if I am wrong, or he wants to make additional clarifications about this. This pavement management plan is essentially it's very similar to our plan with the police department to fund their cruisers. We fund them 1 new car every year. Okay. Well, there's not enough Chapter 90 money to do everything that the highway department needs to do to maintain our roads. And all you have to do is go to different parts of town to see these. And for me in particular, the area around Main and William Street has got to be one of the worst intersections there is in terms of paving. And it needs, you know, in a lot of Main Street needs some work, but that's neither here nor there. We don't have enough Chapter 90 money. So what Mr. Ferry is attempting to do is create a plan that is similar to our cruiser plan that allows us to set money aside for him to go ahead and take on some additional projects that exceed the amount of chapter 90 money that he's getting. Okay, and it's basically a maintenance program for us. Okay. And to me, it makes sense. Okay. What I don't know is where the $300,000 came from. You know, is there certain projects that he's had in mind or he's costed out projects over the last 5 years that he would like to do that he's never been able to get to, and they average on an annual basis 300,000. So I need to understand the logic from Superintendent Ferry about that. But other than that, I support a program like this personally from a finance committee perspective. I just think we need to know how we landed on this number. And then we can think about how much of that do we want to actually fund, how we want to fund it. And in the realistic point, you heard us talk about how close are we to the levy limit. We're only about $150,000 under the levy limit right now, which basically means we can't really raise taxes all that much, right? Otherwise, we're at the levy limit. So we need to kind of figure out how we would fund this. And free cash is one way to do it, but then we also heard tonight that we're going to start seeing our free cash numbers come down as well. But to me, it is an operating budget. It's road maintenance and repairs, right? So to me, it makes sense for us to put it into the operating budget, but how do we get it funded initially so that we can get it ramped up? And it may be a combination of free cash and raise and appropriate next year, but this is just, and it's very preliminary, right? This is just like, think about this for FY24. So with that, all eyes are on you, Mr. Ferry.
This is a 2024 consideration.
Correct, but that will impact how we think about how much holdback we want to maintain
Annually.
free cash.
Right. So I do suggest, let me back up a little bit. I'm totally impressed what happens in this room every year. I'm just floored by it. I mean, I don't like numbers as much as you guys do, but I almost understood everything you guys said tonight. I heard Mr. How frustration might be the wrong word in the selectmen's meeting when the presentation was done on the pavement management, you know, with Elm Street, for example. And you suggested, well, maybe a committee, or you wanted to know how to make it work and try to get this accelerated. I think everyone in this room knows somebody else in another town that has a pavement management plan. And it probably behoove us all to explore how they're doing it. I think how we may approach it is I don't plan to spend the money until I have it. And I spoke with the accountant about this, I believe it was last week. So if you come up with that money and it's actually voted on, now we can put it part of the pavement management plan and it's in part of the process. I think that's the best way of doing it. Everyone in this room knows the health of the town. There's different needs, different fires to put out. So that number is going to fluctuate. So like I said, until that number is voted on, then it becomes part of the plan. And I think that's the best way to work. So you won't see it immediately. You'll see it soon, you know, in the town as improved. So when you're looking at the pavement management plan, the science behind it, we want to stop that curve from going down. We want to at least maintain it or have it go up. And then that's probably the best way of doing it.
So how did we, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I was really gonna jump in right there. So what the highway superintendent, like you're mentioning, right? Right now in terms of the curve. So based on the pavement management plan being completed. So we actually like our current pavement management, or our current pavement rating, is like 71%. So like what the pavement management plan recommended, that base. Oh, yeah, like it included different really funding scenarios, that, where we would fund to stay even, at the 71% where we are now. To increase even higher with an additional commitment. Like a scenario, where what would happen if we just really, say that the $303,000 a year, like using Chapter 90 road maintenance and like nothing else. So what we began thinking about based on the recommendations, and I really do think honestly, we need, one really dedicated meeting between the selectmen and the FinCom to really dive into this. And to see and understand what roads are what and what, so like we can actually like play out different, different scenarios. What happens if we pave Jones Street, and I just made up Jones Street as an example. Pave that. So if we do a full reclamation and pave on Jones Street, we also have the need to do preventive maintenance. So on the roads that are in the 80-90%, so they don't become, so they don't actually regress into being failing roads like Main Street. So but what the plan recommended is essentially to stay where we are now at the 71% rating, we would have to commit an additional $250,000 in local funds a year. So like then that's what, and that was just based on the methodology. So using that is how I came up with a $300,000 placeholder. We still have to all dive into to understand what exactly really could be done with that amount of funding, and is that, and so like once we do come up with that, is that acceptable? So it's really all of us to present to town meeting as well. So like that's where that came from. It was based on the methodology and the plan itself.
Okay.
So the pavement management is really not complete. So part of what you paid for is what Mike just said. We don't have to be trying to figure out how to use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Cater is still at our mercy to help us figure out how to use what we have, the resources we have to complete.
Are you working with sewer department as they have to do repair, replacement, and looking at, well, let's just go with replacement, because repair is usually emergency, right? Let's just go replacement. So if they're replacing pipes on Maple Street, is that something that we are going to work in conjunction with them to identify that is a possible candidate for, you're going to be tearing up the road anyways, right? Would it be beneficial for us to repair that road at the same time that we are working with the sewer department to do a project like that?
Actual question, sewer department, no, because they don't dig up the roads. The party, unless you're extending the system. So like if someone's installing a house, that installer would be digging up the road.
Mhm.
Answer your question though, the other part of it is yes, like Main Street is a good example. I really don't want to do anything on that road. That's why the condition is there until that is a problem is addressed.
But you're in communication with the sewer department, so we could take advantage of this situation as they go in to do the replacement.
They don't dig up roads. I'm one of the commissioners.
I understand that they don't dig up the roads, but they need something. They need access to their pipes. Who gives them that access? Is that you guys? Or is it some private company that they hire out to?
They historically don't dig up their pipes. The water district is probably the biggest offender digging up our roads, and the gas company.
All right, so for them, for example,
Yes,
are you in communication to know when a road's gonna be dug up? And if 10 or 20 feet down the road from there, you know it's bad, does it make sense to do something at that point? I think is what we're getting at.
yes,
So,
yes.
to answer the question, yes, you guys do communicate. And that's why we don't have roads ripped up everywhere. And if we do, it's because there's further projects going on, likely further projects going on that road.
Right. The city of Taunton next to us, they actually have a program with most of the utilities to alleviate the problems that you're addressing. We don't have the extent of underground utilities as Taunton does. So that's why you see all the activity that's going on over there. They're addressing their utilities and then we're doing an overlay in a timely fashion.
Which makes sense.
Okay. So the question, the question that this committee is facing is, do we want to hold back free cash to be earmarked for this pavement management plan? And what is that amount?
I don't have a problem earmarking that, quite honestly. I think the money, if there's any money we're gonna take out of this 894, which happens to be 879 now after the 15,000 for hot. I say we at least back out the second year fire engine and the fourth year street sweeper, because that number is also being held in that 894, is it not?
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
why don't we just
we
back
talked
that
about
out?
that. Yeah, we talked, well, I mentioned that.
Yeah, why don't
Those
we
are the
back
first
that
two.
out? Why don't we do a square 150,000?
Yep.
Back it out, bring it down to 729, 216.81, with 75,000 back onto stabilization and add 75 to capital stabilization. That's where we pick up the $150. And we all go home before my headache gets really bad from my booster shot.
Well, see, and so
Oh, my goodness.
so the reason being, the reason why I would say let's not do it that way is because that holdback is too great.
So
That
you're-
holdback is historically
Much
too
more than we've
big.
ever held.
Yes,
We've held 5,300.
but I would much rather see us in put that money in this, have a holdback of roughly 500,000
Yep,
and put that money into our stabilization funds and let the townspeople support whatever initiative is needed to be funded out of those stabilization funds.
okay,
Okay,
that's easy.
so,
So let's pick a number.
um,
If it's 500 you want to hold.
well, so, but now let's take a step back because now we need to also, Mr. Ferry, I'll go ahead and ask you for your input right now. Go ahead.
You alluded to a very important part. So at the annual town meeting, they're gonna ask, what are they buying?
Right,
So maybe the project should be involved before the annual. It's gonna be a little tricky to get on the warrant. That's, the warrant starts what, January, closed?
Yeah.
For annual?
So no.
No, it closes in April, I believe.
Yeah.
Late, I think it was late, I think it was like April 20th or so.
Come out with what loads are in that and whether or not that is acceptable.
That'd be good, huh?
Probably gonna have to do that, suggest what the higher number is, like I said before.
Right.
We can't increase the number. We can bring it down as you get close to the annual.
Yeah,
Right.
We can be an acceptable number.
And I think that, Tom, to that point, I think that's a separate meeting that Mike has suggested, which is, Tom, here's the number that the finance committee and the board of selectmen feel you can work with for next year for FY 24. But I don't think we leave that money sitting in free cash. We leave that money over in our stabilization funds. And when it comes time for annual town meeting next year and you present your plan and you say, we're doing streets X, Y, and Z for a total cost of $285,000, then we determine the funding source, which will be in all likelihood out of capital or regular stabilization, probably capital. But at least, but
they know exactly what they're voting for.
Yeah.
right,
it doesn't.
No, it's 234, correct?
that is, I believe. But that's what you want. You want your big
Want to
ticket
buy.
items to be,
Town.
By the majority of the town, yeah.
Good about Mrs. Amaral too. Her opinion if she has one.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question though? And she may answer it. So money held in stabilization, money held in free cash and all. Do we get interest on that money? And is there any area that it's greater or lesser, or it's so small, it doesn't matter?
Like stabilization, we have the ability to,
Okay,
and that's really a function of the treasurer.
okay.
Just
Just a
a different fallback. I mean, but like we can see, we might not
Yeah.
hold it long enough to.
Right, we even get anything. It was just a question, just curious. Okay, you wanna?
Stuart, did you have any thoughts about what was just actually discussed in terms of the holdback? Like really, like really appropriating to stabilization now, rather than having a large holdback and then proposing to take funding to fund projects out of stabilization, once we know what those projects
That in.
are really gonna be.
That's what I'm gonna.
Yeah, I mean, I understand both points. Since we know that it's gonna be a future cost coming up to put it into capital stabilization. Those are to be reserved for future known projects, so that does make sense to add a little more into capital stabilization, and that way it's reserved for a particular item and not just left floating in free cash.
Everybody sees it. So the one. Okay.
Okay, so before we can even come up with a number, I think we would like to discuss Article number 9 first, without putting it on the warrant just yet, but at least let's have a discussion about that. The initial, when we first talked about this, before we held it to the end, when we talked about it from the spreadsheet point of view, when we talked about the fact that the highway department has been supported in earnest over the last few years with regards to their equipment needs. However, my biggest question for this is, and I just know this from the capital outlay side, this is replacing a vehicle that is off the road, correct, Mr. Ferry?
Yes.
Okay. So the question becomes to you, because this is a vehicle that one of its primary functions is as a plow, I believe, for the winter. Without this piece of equipment, what kind of coverage do you have for your operations? And I'm not just talking snow, I'm not just talking the winter, talking year round. I want to know what the impact is by us pulling that vehicle off the road. If we were not to replace this, what does that mean to your operations?
Yeah. Be more strategic on moving vehicles around the operations.
Could we get the same job done that we currently do? I mean, you need the truck for a reason.
Right, and originally we asked for the one ton.
Right.
We're finding that the one ton is really, it's overweight. That's gonna be a problem, that's why it's the price of the exercise. But yeah, it's just under the CDL, so we do have to get other people to drive our equipment, so, long duration hours or whatever. So you still can do that without a CDL.
So this truck will be below the CDL umbrella.
Correct.
As long as it's not towing anything that puts it above weight.
Right, so like a yard of material and a trailer puts a big overweight,
Over
plow
26,
on
yep.
the sander on, even for the complex.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. Well, one vehicle.
Yep.
I have a few questions. for
Yeah.
Mr. Ferry regarding this. Mr. Ferry, how many men do you have that would be driving this truck?
Depending what their job assignments are, they all will be.
How many is all?
It's eight underneath.
8. And if we didn't fund this truck, how many would you have available to, well, how many trucks?
After we list it, we still have. We'll have 12.
Right. So you have 12 trucks and you have 8 drivers.
I see where you're going. We have more trucks than we do drivers.
Yeah.
Well, your full-time employees go in the bigger trucks.
Yeah.
With the Sanders. We want our truck drivers to keep the roads at the end of the storm.
Got it.
At all possible. We hire other drivers to drive the non-CDL trucks.
So you're saying we have seasonal employees, basically?
Yes.
Oh.
All right, so we do have people to man those trucks.
I got you.
Moderate storm, we need about 20 pieces of equipment on the road.
Okay,
We're not getting that with higher vehicles. So we
Right.
want to try to keep our fleet moving.
I get
There's
it.
nothing left at the garage when it's a snowstorm.
Right, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so if we've got 12 trucks or 13 trucks, we're still looking for another 7. And that has to come private.
It don't break again.
No.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Plus, we are accepting more roads again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That and when we do have a storm, how long are your drivers out on the road for in a typical storm? What are they averaging? Well, you know, like in, let's say, 6 to 12 inches.
It's the duration.
So it could be 12 hours, it could be 24 hours. And when they pull these 12-hour and 24-hour shifts, we're paying them overtime. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So if we pulled a truck off, it's one less person we have to hire. But, and we're saving, but then we're gonna be paying more in overtime to these other guys because they gotta plow more roads because we have one less truck on the road.
Hypothetically, yes.
So I don't know exactly what the trade-offs are, but it kind of, yeah, it sounds to me like it's kind of a wash. But I also, in my personal opinion, you put a new truck on the road and you have another piece that breaks down, it's gonna be an older piece.
Yeah.
Now you've got something that's a backup. That's at the forefront of your fleet.
Right, there's been quite a bit of challenge to this and the capital outlay, I mean, they just getting ramped up and getting their rhythm going. The bigger equipment too is a challenge that we haven't even touched on yet. So you're gonna have some larger tickets.
Yeah.
That they're gonna need to entertain within less than 5 years also.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that those larger ticket items though aren't gonna be outright purchases. They're gonna be, you know, financed or leased or. Yeah, right. Right, all right,
Reassessing the same problem sooner.
right. Mr. Aguirre, you had some input?
Comment, this statement isn't certainly gonna balance the budget, but I want the finance committee and the board of selectmen to know that we have now just closed our 3rd surplus auction. The first auction, we had a take of around 20,000. Second auction was 50,000. This auction, which in my opinion, was a lot of stuff that just should have gone in the trash, netted 43,000. So we're doing very well with selling our surplus equipment. And the, excuse me, the relationship that we've developed with the auctioneer has grown tremendously. So I think we'll continue to see success like this. So we're not just disposing of equipment that we can no longer use or has been expended, and Tom does a great job of expending equipment. We're actually realizing some money back for the taxpayers, so.
Good.
I think it's, so I know it doesn't pay for the truck, but it's $43,000.
Yeah, so are those numbers you just gave us? Do you put those into the revenue projections that are submitted to the town accountant or are they?
That goes into the general fund.
Yeah, I know they go into the general fund when we receive them, but my question is when we do our budgeting process, And we give, and we have our department heads give their revenue projections. Do you include your auction number? You don't. So that money is rolling into free cash. Yeah, that's a net positive. Okay.
Makes it a little easier.
Right. And we may not have any to sell next year. And so we're not going to see anything.
Right. Oh, you know what it's so.
Yeah.
I want it to be your every other year.
Okay, I'm ready.
So
Very. Yes, 2 trucks, 3, 4, and 1.
Yeah, I looked those over already.
Even though. We replace.
Got a fair amount more, that's gonna be.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I think the first thing we want to do is see if the Board of Selectmen want to put this on the warrant.
And. Article 9 on the job. Did you say?
Yeah, that's just the water. I thought it was completed before.
I know.
Holy shit.
There must be a
I
rain pipe
have
out
a
there.
motion to place Article 9 on the warrant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye.
Finance Committee, any additional discussion on this item?
No,
No,
All right, I will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion on article number 9 that we transfer from available funds the amount written on article 9 in this motion to fund a new highway truck.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to recommend the transfer from free cash.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
friends, I.
Okay. So after the,
Entertain the motion. To vote to transfer from available funds the amount of $105,000 for Article 9.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Garrett. Aye. Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. The motion passes.
okay. So now, before stabilization, capital stabilization and OPEB, we have $1,664,216.81 in free cash. So. First off, I think let's get wow. Let's just talk numbers first. Before we get we know these articles are gonna make it to the warrant. We know we're gonna do all 3 transfers. We just don't know the amount. Let's talk about the amounts, right? I think we're all in agreement here. First off, from a finance committee perspective, roughly 500,000 as free cash holdback has been where we've landed over the last few years. That typically what that does is by the time we're done with this fiscal year, any additional free cash needs that we might have, plus funding a limited number of articles at the FY24 annual town meeting, typically brings us pretty much down to 0. Okay, we had 75,000 left this year that moved back into free cash. So that's how it's been working. We've been pretty spot on with that process.
Okay.
So given that as a basis for free cash, and I'm gonna just round this, make this nice and easy for us. If we targeted a holdback of $464,216.81, that would leave us 1.2 million to split between OPEB stabilization, capital stabilization. Mike, you look a little concerned.
The number just wouldn't be exact. All of that because I just want to, the dispatch cost. So it would be offset a little further by that, but it wouldn't be tremendous.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because I think whatever number we ended up with stabilization, we're just gonna take out of there because we're gonna actually end up overfunding both stabilizations more so than what we've already funded here. So, and I think we've all kind of agreed that a $25,000 reduction to stabilization is
Not immaterial, but not especially concerning.
right. So if we held that, if we did 464,216.81 as our holdback number, that leaves us 1.2 million.
Can I?
Go ahead.
All right. To me, in my mind, if we were gonna hold back 894,216, I'd rather work back from that number.
We were never gonna hold 894.
That's what's on here right now.
That's what's on there right
That's
now.
right. So hear me out. Okay, we take the 894,216.81. We gave 15 grand to Hart Street. That brings us down to 879,216. If you want to hold 500, that gives us a difference of 274,216 to put back into these three accounts. And it's simple. Rather than to try to say we got 1.2 million and reevaluate.
No, because
I know that.
So the OPEB isn't it, there's only two accounts after that because it's,
Right,
yes.
right.
but there's, hold on.
And then you just got 274 to figure from there over two accounts and you're done. Rather than overthinking it. That's what we're left with at the end of the day. 894,216 goes to 879. Then if you want to have 500.
Oh, you just added, you got to take out another 105,000.
Yeah, I know that. That brings you down to 774. Then you take out 5, you got 274, 216.81. Put the 274 back in between the 350 and 450, and we're done. Leave OPEB as it is. Very, very simple. Leave OPEB at 90K.
90K.
And then between the other two, give 27, if you want to round it out, do 275. Do whatever
What
you
does your
want.
holdback number end up being?
My old back number before the whole, you want 500. I brought it down to 774, 216 after the truck. You hold back 500, you got 274, 216 left.
Yeah,
Let's call it 275.
yeah, but let's not worry, but now you're worried about splitting two,
275 between two accounts.
all right.
That's a
It's
hell of a
all-
lot
it's all-
easier.
it's all the same,
Right.
because no, it's all the same. So I'm at 1.2, you take out the 90,000.
I know, it's just an easier way to think about it for me.
Well, I like to think of it just in terms of what are we funding? You're thinking about what did we fund, what did we think about funding originally
You're
and how
right.
much more are we adding?
But we had already established a number of what we funded when Mr. Ruda gave it, or Ms. Emerald gave it to us. We already had that number. So. all we
No,
do
oh,
now-
no, these funded numbers are just numbers that are suggested.
I know
There,
that.
we haven't had any discussion about them. Like I am,
So we have.
because, and here's why.
Okay.
Here's the reason why I want to have this discussion is because at the end of the day,
Hmm.
stabilization is not the 350 that's listed here.
Right,
Stabilization is 580.
Okay.
Okay,
because you have another 230.
because you,
somewhere.
yeah, because you got the 230 that you're doing for snow and ice.
Right.
That's been included in that police station article.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, you do not fund, again, so this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where you have a 2-to-1 ratio between contributions to capital versus regular stabilization. And at this case, we're actually in the reverse. We're on the negative side now. We're overfunding our stabilization fund and underfunding our capital stabilization.
But
Now, I understand that I'm a little biased here because I'm the chairman for the capital outlay committee. By the way, any of you can take that on if you want.
that's the reality of it.
We haven't even looked at the problems of the school.
Right, which is why we want to move even more into capital.
So
So take the whole 224 that you're saying,
275, put it in there. Who cares? That's fine.
Yeah.
I know
Is that what-
you're gonna be rooting for that, so I got.
Are you?
You know what I mean? 'Cause I know that's your intention.
Say it.
No, I know what he's saying. He doesn't even have to say it.
You would stay with 350 less whatever the contractual obligation for the CBA would be.
Right.
About
To
four
pay
and a
that.
quarter, and then you put 200 into capital and bring it up to 650.
Well, again, what did you say, Mike? What did you say stabilization was? 1.6 in capital?
So yeah, the one. Last month of 1.6, then we took 150 out for the feasibility study. So I get 1.68 minus 150, so.
That's the school feasibility study?
Yes.
That's going to be reimbursed back to us?
No, we made a commitment with the stabilization deposit. That the first 150,000 would be backfilling the cost of the school feasibility study.
All right.
With what we got back from E&D.
So we got roughly
1.45.
1.45. Okay,
That's in.
And
regular
that's-
stabilization.
what's in capital?
It-
Just over $1 million?
No, it was last month it was 968. And then we took 150 out for the library.
So it's 830.
So 830. So I mean, I don't disagree with the sentiment there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that we should make a really good infusion of the capital.
right.
Right.
Okay.
And knowing that we also have a large amount that is probably going to be earmarked for pavement. Pavement plan. Could be.
Okay.
Could be needed for that. So what numbers did you land on?
So this is it then. So I believe if we go with the stabilization fund, let's say we have 275 to put out there. Give another 75 to the regular, bring that up to 4.25 and give Robert's Candy Fund. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Can't say that. Well, we did record it. I didn't mean that. But we put another 200,000 into capital and that brings us up to 650.
Yeah.
And which will bring you up to 1.4 million.
So, and here's again, the argument that I'm going to make now is essentially what we've done is funded stabilization at, what was the total number then going to be 350? So
350 is gonna bring
four
up-
and a quarter. You've essentially
You're
funded
at
it to
580, so you're 655.
So you're at 655 in the total for capital
Yeah.
stabilization was what?
Yeah.
Was,
See,
so it's a 1-for-1 match.
right.
And to me, that's not the right ratio we need to be maintaining. We need to be maintaining our capital costs are way more than our operating costs. So we need to be pushing more money into capital.
I understand.
So it at a 2-to-1 ratio or a 3-to-4 ratio or 3-to-1 ratio. So that for this, that's why I was looking at 1.2 because now we're at 1.1.
Yeah.
So if you took roughly 1.1.
Yeah.
And took a third of it, what we should be doing is 650,000 to capital and 300 and something change
I
to
understand.
Regular state.
regular stabilization, which is really it's kind of skewed because you've already put 230 into the snow and ice
Right.
component. So it's really almost 1-to-1. I mean, I would almost rather see it be 750, 250 because you've essentially made it 500.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been on the board long enough to remember a time where capital stabilization didn't even exist. And it was $0 in there.
Yeah.
So I believe we made inroads to get
Yeah.
to where we are, to be quite honest with you.
So what I was thinking was just leave stabilization at 350 which is really 580. And then bumping the rest of capital stabilization up to the 680, whatever, 670 something.
Well, no, because you still got 75 to play with in there. Yeah.
That's
So
what I'm saying. Don't
put the 75 into stabilization.
leave that number at 350.
Yeah. And
And
then
then
you
bump-
basically want 275 to go under there?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's great.
That's 7.25
Yeah.
versus 350 plus 230. That's 750 to 580. That's 60. That's a 60-40 split.
All right,
That's
let's do this.
about where we want to be.
Yeah, we can,
Capital stabilization.
No,
no, 350 as it's written. And then we would be putting under Robert's program, another 275 on top of this, which I don't agree with. You know what I mean? And it's nothing against you, it's just, it's mathematics. Forget about the 230, you know, that's a given. But just looking at the sheer numbers, I think it's a much cleaner remedy. 4.25, 650, 90, call it a day.
but then that's my problem is 4.25 is not 4.25. 4.25 is
I understand, it's more,
655
yes, it is,
because of the 230.
yeah, so you want the
That's-
232,
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that
all right, I'll tell you
technically what we've done is we're giving them, we're putting into stabilization 500 and, 600, 500 and 350 plus 230. Do the math, someone.
Hey,
580.
508,
yeah,
putting 580,000 into stabilization. We're immediately pulling 230 out.
Right.
Okay? Because that's what the stabilization fund there is there for, which is we're reducing the tax rate essentially.
Yeah.
Because of that, okay?
Yeah.
But you're at 580.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But for capital stabilization, you're saying only put in six.
you're gonna put another, hold on, you're putting another 200 on top of that, 650,000,
Right.
that's pretty good.
It's almost a 1-for-1 match. And I just made
This
the
time.
point, and I just made, but that's the way it's always been. It's the way it's always, go back to the last,
But no, 'cause it's been
at
getting better.
the last special, it was 200 and 200.
Yeah, but don't
It
forget,
was a 1-for-1.
we got
It was not-
500 held yet, there's nothing to say at annual, we can't put more money into that. There's nothing saying that.
Yeah, we can't put more money where?
That into the capital stabilization, and you fight your fight, you know what I mean, and you put that out there. I get what you're trying to do, I understand it. Can I ask a question? I don't even think the Board of Selectmen even addressed these three yet.
No, we haven't. We're
So
just having
should
a
we,
discussion on it.
should we,
I think
get
it's
that
good
done?
discussing.
so we. can
Well, we
go
know
into-
that, we know the articles are going on the board,
Yeah.
on the
Cause
thing.
I just realized you're the chair tonight, so you can't even motion, so if we go forward, we're all set.
I haven't recognized the Board of Selectmen at this point. But all I'm saying is this, Kevin, is so even if stabilization, if we moved 580
Yes.
over there,
Yeah.
we're gonna pull 230, we earmarked it. Okay,
Yeah.
which is exactly what we've done.
Yeah.
For the reduction in the ice and snow budget.
Yeah.
Okay, if we move the 680 or whatever number you said there.
Yeah.
And we're earmarking a good portion of that based on on what's been listed here, roughly $300,000 for our pavement management plan.
Right.
Then the only true contribution we're making to capital stabilization at this point is $380,000, which is a 1-for-1 match with capital stabilization. I'm sorry, regular stabilization, which is what we did last year. We did a 1-for-1 match. So that would be my point is we're not doing anything that has gone against any sort of past history.
If we have the money in regular stabilization and something comes up that we need. Let me ask you this.
They've already
Let's-
got an extra $600,000 in there.
Right. Good, yeah,
So
Yep.
there's a big difference there.
Yep.
So now we're talking about moving them up to 1.8 in stabilization, and our capital stabilization is only gonna go up to 147.
so in capital stabilization. Is it more limited on what you can use that money for as opposed to regular stabilization?
It's capital expenses,
That's right, so it has to be capital.
but capital
So
expenses.
if it's not
across the
capital
board.
and we need something out of regular stabilization and we restrict ourselves, could we potentially get in a different type of situation?
The only thing here, like we want to really define the rules of the road before the next annual town meeting as well. So we're gonna have financial policies. I mean, ideally, just my opinion, like for general stabilization, we make the use of that pretty rigid because, the state oh, you know, like, it shouldn't just be like a cookie jar, like, it should be that we draw on it, where we. When we're in a true emergency.
Right.
So like, so yeah, to answer your question. So like, it really would depend on how we craft those policies, because we don't really have any yet. Like general stabilization is pretty broad, I mean, we
Right.
can fund whatever we
Well,
want.
that's my point, is that we have more flexibility if the money's in stabilization. Once we put it into capital stabilization, it doesn't seem like we have the same flexibility. Period. I mean, I'm either right or wrong. I mean, I'd be right. So that's it.
Do you have the ability to transfer from stabilization to capital?
Not without probably doing it.
Town vote.
Yeah. It's
Would make sense.
not practical. It's not practical. I feel the stabilization account, I mean, listen, Rob, no disrespect, man. We never even funded this account before. And now we're funding it a lot better. We understand that there's capital projects, but we also understand some of the stuff we're gonna need to do in town, we can pay out of stabilization. Some of the stuff in town that if you don't have the stabilization, you cannot pay with capital. Period.
Mike, how much do we have from a capital outlay perspective that's pending for the next few years?
Like, I believe the last tally without the FY 24 update, because like we just actually took those in the last tally was $4.9 million, but
0.9 million in capital requests right now.
Mhm.
We have a balance of $830,000.
Right. And
So
how,
you tell me how we're gonna fund all of this.
how did we pay it before? We paid it out of stabilization.
No, we did,
Well,
we never
we
had
did
stabilization either.
Well, we did raise and appropriate. I mean, I was here when we didn't have any money in stabilization.
Luck and hope.
Just mentioned all night. It's something that we really need to consider
Yep.
at some point in the near future. We're going to be taking a vote on the BP project, which we're talking $840,000 of potential cuts if the townspeople vote no on the overlay. Will we need to make all those cuts, or can we go into stabilization to help offset the impact if that doesn't pass and they don't go away?
that's my opinion, that's a really slippery slope. We would be using one-time revenues to fund operational costs, and we'd be digging a hole.
Yeah.
That would be worse than the hole that we're gonna face in FY 25.
Okay.
All right. I think
So,
we're set on OPEB, so
yeah,
let's go ahead and get that onto the warrant.
That's Article 15.
yes.
I'd love to try.
Okay. You had the opportunity to review Article 15. I will entertain a motion to place Article 15 on the warrant. Second. Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen, aye. Mr. Chico? Chairman Hull, and aye. Okay.
So Article 15, OPEB retirement fund funding, any questions? Everyone's good. I will entertain a motion.
I'll motion that we take Article 15. Recommend they recommend.
Yeah, we're just looking for recommendations.
Oh, yeah. I would recommend we accept Article 15 as pay transfer from appropriate funds in the amount of 90K. Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
I will entertain the motion to vote and transfer from available funds the sum of $90,000 for Article 15. Motion made in second. All those in favor? Aye. Chairman Hull, it's an aye. Yeah.
It's how many.
So for you to have a comment, just majority of the president.
Um. 18? Do 18 first?
Yeah, I mean, 18 regular stabilization, yeah.
I will entertain the motion to place Article 18 on the warrant as to $350,000.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco. Aye. Chairman Hull is an aye. To recommend the sum of $350,000. Replaced on the warrant.
You don't recommend,
recommend
you're just placing it on the warrant.
That's it.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, Finance Committee discussion. What is the amount you want to put on here?
All right. I'm gonna make a motion.
I haven't asked for one.
I thought we were done discussing.
Go
ahead.
I asked for, is there a discussion on the amount? So if you're saying no,
I'm saying yes, 425.
I would go with that.
I would go with that number.
So can I make a motion now?
I'm just, no input, all right. I think we're overfunding.
That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You ready?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
All right. So I would motion that on Article 18, we transfer free cash into the stabilization fund in the amount of $425,000.
So I'm gonna disregard the motion right now
Okay.
because I want to be perfectly clear.
Yes,
All we are doing is making recommendations on the number. Okay,
Okay.
so if 425 is the number you want to recommend,
yes.
then you have to, in your motion, you have to say the finance committee is recommending an amount of 425,000.
Why
Because I
isn't
want to
that-
be,
Why isn't
you-
that on any other article?
it is, every one of the,
I know you
This-
say that at the end.
no, this is. The purpose of
Whatever
tonight
you
is
want.
not to vote on the articles. The
Okay.
purpose of tonight is to
Okay.
make our finance committee recommendations.
Got it.
So every
Right.
vote we've taken has been for a recommendation on the article. And so
Sure.
what you want the finance committee to recommend is
Yep.
425,000 here.
So
And that's what we want to
I'll
do.
restate the article. Article 18, Finance Committee recommends that we transfer from free cash the sum of $425,000 into the stabilization account.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Put it up for a vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, nay.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz. I was gonna say nay also. I thought when you were saying the 425, it was for the capitalization. I have to read,
Capitalization is 650,
oh, okay.
so it's higher.
But out of this stabilization fund, we are taking,
Taking what? So this is what I did, Sue. 200,
I know what you said.
yeah, 275, I'm giving 200 to the capital stabilization fund. And we're giving 75 to the regular stabilization fund. So that brings the 350.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I'm,
425,
right,
okay. Sorry.
okay.
I misunderstood.
So what is your vote?
If I can change it, I will go to aye.
Okay.
Susan Lorenz.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Carrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And all right, motion passes. The Finance Committee recommendation is for $425,000 to be moved to the stabilization fund from free cash. So I will now turn it over to the Board of Selectmen for their vote and or reconsideration of the warrant.
One, it was stated as motion. Like your motion to reconsider.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and second to reconsider. All those in favor, Mr. Cameron. Aye. Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
I will now entertain a motion to include a specific number since. Voting period is-
$25,000.
I thought you guys just voted on the article to have it on here and then we made our recommendation.
So they voted the article. To have the article on there at the amount of 350.
Right.
So now they have to vote to reconsider to change the article to report 25.
Oh, we're still on 17.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still on 18.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I have a
It's the booster shot.
motion. For the number of $425,000 to stabilize. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Mr. Cameron. Aye. Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Powell is an aye. So it would be 4-1. Now, before we get into 17. So we,
Now you need to go ahead and do your recommendation itself.
right, but. Some discussion, different numbers.
You're only voting to put it on.
4.25, so would that make capital stabilization, 650?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't put it on there yet. I mean, we're gonna make the recommendation once you put it on. That's,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be the proposal.
Opportunity to read Article 17. I will entertain a motion to accept Article 17 as read.
Make that motion.
Why don't we just go with the?
Yeah, I don't know why we don't, but.
Yeah. Take some trouble.
Just-
Did you do your recommendation? I don't think you guys did your recommendation on 18 yet.
No.
No.
That's
So
just to
yeah, let's finish that.
put it on, put it on the warrant first.
No, 18, which is regular stabilization. They didn't finish. They didn't make their recommendation.
Oh, I thought you
They
did.
voted to change the wording to 425. They haven't voted
I'll sit.
on their recommendation yet.
It's the time.
Okay, I'm sorry, getting back to Article 18, I will entertain a motion to vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $425,000 to the stabilization account.
Make that motion.
Second motion, recommend.
Made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Cameron.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Hall is an aye. Article 17. I will entertain a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $750,000 to the capital stabilization account, or take any other action relative thereto.
I make that motion.
It's not the figure.
It's not, yeah, it's not.
I'm not gonna second.
I will step down as chair and second the motion.
Well, it's
Capital.
650.
it's gonna be 650.
Yeah,
So like
but the numbers.
275. Remember I had the 274. I mean, it's gonna lower this 500 by.
Yeah,
25
it's gonna be.
Step down as chair to second that motion. All those in favor?
The motion is 7.
You just, yeah. You're making the warrant motion 750 with that number.
650.
No, you said 750. You heard 750, right, Cam?
Chairman said 750. Mr. Karen made that motion. I did not second it, so that motion. It should be 650. I have a motion.
To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum not to exceed $650,000 to the capital stabilization account, or take any other action relative thereto.
Second that.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I make that motion.
Yeah, it's all right.
What's the shot? Yeah, that's a shot.
I made a motion.
Yeah. This is one. Yeah. Here's what happened. So that, and then when you do 650, just 35,000 gets added back in.
Yeah.
Or right at 5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that number I'm fine with.
Yeah.
These numbers.
I know you're not. I know. All right, is it our turn?
650.
Okay, beautiful. Somebody want to make a motion
Any
on
discussion
17?
No,
on 17, capital stabilization? No discussion? Is there a motion?
I move to recommend the amount discussed by the Board of Selectmen at 650 to be put into capital stabilization fund from either free cash or available funds.
All right, so it's,
Recommend.
all right, so now I'm not gonna make a move. To clarify, 650 is $650,000.
Excuse me, yes, $650,000.
Thank you. Yeah, and you, and Dave, just for the future reference.
Yep.
You just transferred from free cash or transfer from available funds. You don't have to staple.
Okay, gotcha.
second,
Motion has been made and seconded. We'll put it up for a vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, nay.
David Carpenter, aye.
Lorenz, I.
Motion carries. Turn it back over to the Board of Selectmen.
There are no more.
You have to vote for the recommendation, for the Board of Selectmen to recommend the 650,000 amount. Your first vote was to put it onto the warrant. Then we voted for the Finance Committee to recommend. Now you have to vote for the Board of Selectmen to recommend it.
Recommend. I will make, I'd like to take a motion to see if the town will vote. to transfer from available funds, from not to exceed $650,000 to capital stabilization account.
Make that motion.
Motion made in second, all those in favor? Mr. Cannon. Chairman Hull is a no. There are no more that apply to the FinCom.
That is correct, to the best of my knowledge.
Further business.
We have one piece of business, which is just approving our minutes from our last meeting. Mr. Carpenter sent those out. Did everyone have a chance to review
Yes,
Yes.
the meeting minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes for the,
I make a motion. We vote to approve the minutes from September 15th, 2022 as received from
Second.
Carpenter.
motion made and seconded. All those in, let's put it to a vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon abstain. I was not in attendance.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, I.
Motion carries. Let's see.
You have to transfers or?
Nope, there are no transfers today.
Can I make a
The-
motion to adjourn?
The Finance Committee, its business is complete. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
I move to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those, put it to a vote.
Kevin Perry, aye.
Robert Rendon, aye.
David Carpenter, aye.
Susan Lorenz, I.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Board of
Thank you.
Selectmen.
The pen, put it towards your phone.
So, Article, we got Article 20.
Okay, good night, gentlemen.
So,
By the way.
Just
Thank you very much.
to clarify, when the BB school superintendent was here, the board voted.
You want me to walk you out to
to
your
have it
car?
on the article. The board hasn't actually one way or another. But I believe that brings us to Article 19.
You have had the opportunity to review Article 19. I want to gain a motion to place Article 19 on the warrant. All those in favor?
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
Motion made, second.
Is this every 3 years?
Right.
Like, sure, I was.
Every 3 years.
So, alright, so how this read, would, the board would, set, to set the salaries each year, but then every, like at least every 3 years review, the salaries basically for any, for any COLA or anything else on the rates. So at least once,
Hope you enjoy your.
once every 3 years, what are the things about?
Thanks.
Like what the salary, what the stipend has been for those 3 years. To its
Right, Tom.
whether it should have any type of. COLA. Oh, you know, but the language here does not really commit the board to actually increasing any COLA there. It just actually says that the board can, the FinCom shall review. It doesn't really hold the board and the FinCom to really increase them at all. Other than to review them no quarter and once every 3 years. So they really, it doesn't prescribe any type of action. Other than a review, if that makes sense. One thing I just want to clarify as well, based on the board's initial review, in the initial review, actually further down about 2/3 of the way down, after the word additional, like in the original proposal, the word, there was initially the word annual there. You know, in the board, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago, had a lot of concern with the word annual there based on a year. You know, I think I talked about this with the town of Cohen too, that the word annual could give rise to some type of compounding. So we struck the word annual out, hearing the board's input then. In one line above, right above the word additional, we also clarified, we wanted to include the word same. So in order to we included the word same. So was basically required that a member of a board committee had to serve 3 years on the same committee. And it was a little in the original version, it was a little vague. We had the word applicable. And we in our internal discussions, we we discussed the word applicable, had more gray areas associated with it than the word same did. So that is the additional adjustment that we made. I just wanted to clarify those things.
Yeah, it says, for 1 and 3 years, may receive, that means they're not guaranteed the 10%. They may receive. Actually, receive, they may receive. So.
Yep. So, any other, median, so just how I approach recommendations, I like to have latitude to really, to have a proposal to the board. I don't want, I never liked in my strategy, if you will, to propose something that is absolutely gonna lock the board into something. Oh, like, I mean, I think the intent is there, but, like if there are any fiscal issues, just as an example, it does leave a little bit of latitude.
We had said at the previous meeting that May needed to be inserted because we don't know future economic time. Are there any further questions regarding Article 19? I will entertain a motion to place Article 19 on the.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Mr. Cass.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 20. I have no question. I will entertain a motion to place Article 20 on
Article 20 is already one.
to.
Yeah, like if the board wants to make any type of recommendation on the
The recommendation.
I will make that motion to recommend.
Second that motion.
Motion made and second to recommend. All those in favor, Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco. Aye. Chairman Hull is an aye. Are there any questions on Article 21?
The town clerk was here for a good 3 hours, but he does have a newborn at home. So I volunteered to take this one for him. This in Article 21, he's proposing a bylaw with really like a house, it's a housekeeping bylaw. That when the general bylaw is amended by vote of town meeting, we don't actually have any direction in our current bylaw that gives anybody the responsibility to update the general bylaws accordingly. That was one really, it was a gray area, and he, together with town council, with the support of town council, is proposing this article to really close up that gray area. And I think it is very well done. So,
Are there any further questions? I will entertain a motion to place Article 21 on the warrant.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen.
Is an aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Now, do we have to vote a recommendation as well?
on
21?
Article 21 is, so yeah, it's really the board's prerogative. I mean, I actually do think it's a very good, it's a very good thing to do. I would recommend, the board do take a position on it.
I will entertain a motion to recommend Article 21.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Article 22, are there any questions? I will entertain a motion to place Article 22 on the warrant.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second. Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. I will entertain a motion for a positive recommendation for Article 22.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Chico.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Question, Article 23, are there any questions?
I'm going to answer questions if there are.
Okay.
How is this different from what we had?
Sure, so the world of solar photovoltaic and batteries are evolving much quicker than we anticipated. So this bylaw is Dayton's way of trying to stay ahead or increase with the new technologies. Our current bylaw does not include any energy storage. This bylaw also took into consideration some of the concerns that we've had from neighbors with our current bylaw. So is it perfect? I wouldn't say anything is perfect, but we're doing our best to try to keep up with the industry and technologies.
Was the planning board involved in this?
The planning board initiated it.
Oh, okay.
and it went to public hearings.
Um, Motion goes on warrant?
No.
I will entertain a motion to place Article 23 on the warrant.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second, all those in favor, Mr. Karen.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. I will entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation for Article 23.
I don't know if I'm qualified.
So one of the things on this, the recommendation at town meeting, it could actually come at the recommendation of the planning board because it is a planning board article. So I think the board, perfectly appropriate if the board didn't want to recommend this. It's absolutely appropriate.
Okay, so then I wouldn't.
Well, I won't recommend it either.
Article 23 will go on the warrant without a recommendation. Article 24, I will entertain a motion to place Article 24 on the warrant.
I've got a motion.
Do I have a second?
What happens if we don't accept these roads,
They'll be under the auspices of the HOA.
which is what it is now? So what is the benefit to the town to take these roads on?
I'm not sure. Well, Mike's sort of deep discussion,
Right.
yeah,
I remember Dean Thorne bringing this to our attention. Right. They're taxpayers, they're paying their taxes, and then if we don't make it a public road, we're going to pay, they're gonna have to pay for plowing and all that kind of stuff,
But when the taxes go to plowing, the only thing that they're going to be paid for and not taking advantage of is plowing.
maintenance of the road.
How about police and fire?
Yeah.
No,
Well, that's,
part of their taxes, just like everybody else pays. I guess they've entered into these agreements knowing that they were private roads. Why does the developer get to come to the town and say, take this road on, and I don't want responsibility for it anymore?
yeah, I think you were involved at some point with this.
Right.
40B. I remember Pines was the only one that we said would not become a public road, and that actually changed. We made it a public road some, I think it was 2018, updating that. All the others never had that condition in there, we didn't put that condition in there, it has to be made a private road.
But we did for the plans.
We did it for the Pines, and then we took it away from Pines. I think it was as a result of being phone saying, and taxes too. Why would we have them pay taxes and have them pay extra money to have a plow?
so the reason why I say it's the deep discussion is it's 10 o'clock at night, and the last discussion took a couple hours on this, but just expanding on what Selectman Pico has said, there was some problems in the past with when they fall under the direction of the HOA with proper maintenance of the roadways. Taxpayers were not able to get to their houses in snowstorms. I had one instance where there was a nurse who was working double shift in Providence, couldn't get into her driveway because the road wasn't plowed. So there was some outcry by the public to say, we're taxpayers, we're not getting a breakdown of taxes. Why can't these roads be considered public ways? And then that just brought on a deeper discussion, and that's what led to some acceptance of roads that weren't supposed to be.
Plus, I know one particular HOA that is very divided right now. And that's actually one of us because of the division. If an HOA goes bust, or there's no involvement, you could have a situation where those people would be suing an HOA, you'd have a mess down there.
The other thing too that came up, and I certainly know this isn't a deciding factor, but it needs to be taken into consideration, is right now we're spoiled by Borges, our rubbish collector. Technically, they don't have to travel on a private road.
Right.
Only a public road. So think about the quagmire that would cause if they were private and we didn't have a company who was willing to go on a private road. So that's just one facet of it, but it all, in totality, adds up. I think there's arguments on both sides here, whether to keep them private or public. But Dayton seems very long ago to go down the route of accepting these roadways.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second to place Article 24 on the warrant. All those in favor? Chico? Aye. Mr. Karen? Aye. Chairman Powell is an aye. I will entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation for Article 24.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen? Aye. Chairman Powell is an aye. Article 25. I will entertain a motion to place Article 25 on the warrant.
So move. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Powell is an aye. There's no recommendation.
No.
Entertaining motion to adjourn.
One other motion that the board would consider approving, and it would be a motion to approve the warrant with all the recommendations in totality. So then we have the ability to go back and make the recommendations and then I'll then post. It's all encompassing motion that essentially covers everything that we talked about, but just with one universal motion, so we have the ability to post.
I will entertain a motion to accept the articles stated this evening in its entirety to be placed on the warrant.
Make that motion. Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Chico?
Aye.
Mr. Karen? Aye. Chairman Powell is an aye. That agenda item of minutes, I believe, was that, not us, because I don't have it.
Yeah.
So I want to take a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chico? Karen? Aye. Chairman Powell is an aye. Thank you.